The most powerful alpha king in the realm meets a girl in chains, but she won't kneel, won't fear him, won't even blink when his dominance crushes every wolf in the room to the ground. Kael Draven has broken warriors with a single word, but this nameless prisoner just smirks at him like he's nothing. What he doesn't know yet, she's not defying him. She can't submit. Ancient blood makes her immune to his power. And when he discovers the truth, it'll shatter everything he believes about control, loyalty, and the throne he's killed to keep. Stay until the end, hit that like button, and drop your city in the comments below. The throne room stank of fear. Kael Draven could taste it in the air, sharp, acrid, soaking into the stone walls like old blood. 30 wolves knelt before him, foreheads pressed to cold marble, spines curved in perfect submission. Guards lined the perimeter, rigid as statues. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed too loud. The Alpha King's presence didn't just command respect. It crushed the possibility of anything else. Kael sat sprawled across his throne, one leg draped over the armrest, jaw tight as he studied the trembling pack representatives before him. His fingers drummed against black iron. Each tap echoed like a death knell. "You're telling me," he said, voice low and lethal, "that 3 supply routes got hit in 1 week, and not a single one of you saw it coming?" Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. "Answer me." The Alpha Command ripped through the room like a shockwave. Every wolf convulsed, submission hammering down on them with physical force. A few whimpered. One collapsed completely, cheek smashing against the floor. My king," stammered an older wolf, Beta Marcus, his gray beard soaked with sweat. "We had scouts, patrols, every precaution. Precautions don't mean shit when my people are starving." Kael's eyes flashed amber, wolf rising just beneath the surface. 3 routes, 3 failures. That's not bad luck, Marcus. That's incompetence. "Please, Your Majesty, we—" "Get out." The 2 words hit like a blade. Marcus flinched. "Your Majesty." "Out, before I decide incompetence deserves worse than dismissal." They scrambled. 30 wolves crawling backward on hands and knees, too terrified to even stand until they reached the doors. The massive oak panels slammed shut behind them with a boom that rattled the chandeliers. Kael exhaled through his teeth, anger simmering just below boiling. His beta, Dane, broad-shouldered, scarred, loyal to the bone, approached from the left. "You're being too soft on them," Dane muttered. Kael shot him a look that could strip paint. "Soft? You let them live. Give me 5 minutes. I might change my mind." Dane almost smiled. Almost. "The prisoner's here." Kael's drumming fingers stopped. "What prisoner?" "The girl, from the raid last night on the eastern border. Guards found her in the ruins of that burned-out village. No pack scent. No markers. She won't talk." "Then make her talk." "We tried." Dane's jaw tightened. "She's difficult." Kael raised an eyebrow. In his kingdom, difficult meant dead. "You're telling me one girl is giving trained interrogators trouble?" "Not trouble. She just—" Dane hesitated, and that hesitation made Kael sit up straighter. Dane didn't hesitate, ever. "You should see for yourself." Curiosity flickered, cold and sharp. Kael waved a hand. "Bring her in." The side doors opened. 2 guards entered first, hands on their sword hilts, eyes locked forward with military precision. Then came the girl, and Kael went very, very still. She was a wreck. Clothes torn and filthy, dark hair matted with dried blood and mud, bruises blooming purple across her collarbone. Iron chains bound her wrists, heavy shackles meant for wolves 3 times her size, clamped so tight they'd rubbed her skin raw. She should have looked broken. She didn't. She walked into that throne room like she owned it, head up, shoulders back, eyes sharp, furious, green as broken glass, locked directly on Kael. Not at his feet, not at the floor, at him. The guard shoved her forward. She stumbled, chains jangling, but caught herself without breaking eye contact. "On your knees," one guard snarled, hand moving to force her down. She didn't move. "I said kneel. I heard you." Her voice cut through the room, low and rough, edged with something that made Kael's wolf snap to attention. "And I said no." The guard's face went crimson. "You don't talk back to, Enough!" Kael's words stopped everything. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, studying her like a predator sizing up prey that didn't run. Let her stand. The guard's mouth opened, closed. He stepped back. Kale tilted his head. What's your name? Does it matter? She said. It matters if I decide whether you leave this room breathing. A pause. Then, with that same infuriating calm, Arya Val. Arya Vale. Kale rolled the name over his tongue, tasting it for lies. Found none. Where's your pack, Arya Vale? Don't have one? Everyone has a pack. I don't. Why not? Her jaw tightened. Because they're dead. The words fell flat. No emotion, no tremor, just fact, delivered with the weight of someone who'd carved that truth into their bones and moved on. Kale watched her for a long moment. Around them, the guard shifted uncomfortably. Dane stood rigid, hand near his weapon. You were found in Ashford territory, Kyle said slowly. That village burned 3 days ago. Raiders hit it hard, killed the Alpha, scattered the pack. You expect me to believe you just happened to be there? Believe whatever you want. Careful, girl. You're in chains for a reason. Am I? Arya glanced down at the shackles, then back up at him with something dangerously close to amusement. Funny. I don't feel threatened. Dane moved. Fast. 1 second he was across the room, the next his hand was fisted in Arya's hair, yanking her head back, exposing her throat. You should, he growled, wolf bleeding into his voice. You're talking to the Alpha King. Show some fucking respect. Arya's breath hitched. Pain, not fear. But her eyes never left Kael's. Let her go, Kale said quietly. Dane's grip tightened. She needs to learn. I said let her go. Not a command. Not yet. But the edge in Kael's voice made Dane release her immediately, stepping back with visible effort. His hand shook with barely restrained violence. Arya straightened slowly, working her jaw. A thin line of blood traced down her neck where Dane's claws had pricked skin. Better? Kale asked, voice soft as a threat. I've had worse, she said. And there it was again. That flicker of something in her eyes. Not defiance for defiance's sake. Something deeper, colder. Like she'd stared into the void so long threats just bounced off. Kyle stood. The movement was deliberate, controlled. He descended the throne steps one at a time, each footfall echoing through the vast chamber. Every wolf in the room felt it, the weight of his presence expanding, filling the space, pressing down like atmospheric pressure before a storm. He stopped 3 feet from Arya. Up close, he could see the details. The way her pulse jumped in her throat despite the calm mask, the white-knuckle grip of her chained hands, the defiance carved into every line of her face. You're lying, he said. About what? All of it. No pack, no allegiance. You expect me to believe you're just some lone wolf who wandered into a war zone and got caught. I don't expect you to believe anything. She tilted her head, mirroring his earlier gesture with mocking precision. I expect you to make a decision. Kill me or don't. But stop wasting my time with questions you already know I won't answer. The silence that followed could have cracked stone. Dane made a choked sound. Your Majesty, please, let me handle this. No. Kyle didn't look away from Arya. I want to try something. He let his power slip. Not all of it, not even close. Just enough. A fraction of the alpha dominance that lived in his blood, the command that bent wolves to his will whether they wanted it or not. It rolled out like invisible chains wrapping around Arya, sinking hooks into her nervous system. Every wolf in the room dropped. Guards crashed to their knees, heads bowed, necks exposed in instinctive submission. Dane grunted, fighting it, but even he bent, one knee hitting marble, teeth gritted against the overwhelming need to submit. Kyle watched Arya, waited for her to break. Her knees trembled, sweat beaded on her forehead, her breath came faster, shoulders curving inward as the weight of his command pressed down like a mountain on her chest. But she didn't kneel. Her legs shook so violently he could hear her chains rattling. Her face went white. Every muscle locked in visible agony as she fought against a force that had broken alphas, not just pack wolves. Submit, Kael said softly. A full command this time. The kind of order that rewrote instinct, that made wolves piss themselves and beg forgiveness for crimes they didn't commit. Arya's mouth opened. A sound escaped, half gasp, half growl, and she stayed standing. What? Dane's voice came out strangled. How? Kale cut his power. Instantly the pressure vanished. Guards gasped for air, collapsing forward. Dane rose on shaking legs, staring at Arya like she'd just sprouted wings. Arya swayed, nearly fell, caught herself at the last second. Her breathing was ragged, eyes unfocused, but when they cleared and found Kael's again, she smiled. Small, vicious, triumphant. "Fuck your submission," she whispered. The room erupted. "Impossible," Dane roared. "No wolf can resist." "She's not pack," another guard stammered. "Maybe she's human." "Human?" Dane spun on him. "You think a human could survive those chains? Could take that much alpha pressure without their brain leaking out their ears?" Kale held up a hand. Silence crashed down. He stared at Arya, really stared, looking past the dirt and blood and chains to the thing underneath. Her scent was wrong, not human, not quite wolf. Something else, something old. "What are you?" he asked. "Tired," Arya said, "and really, really done with this conversation. Answer the question. Or what? You'll torture me?" She laughed, sharp, bitter. "Go ahead. Line forms to the left. Take a number." Kale moved before conscious thought, pure alpha instinct. One hand shot out, fingers wrapping around her throat, lifting her onto her toes. Not choking, just holding, making her feel the strength that could crush her windpipe like paper. "I don't need torture," he growled, face inches from hers. "I need answers. And you're going to give them to me." Arya met his eyes. Hers were watering from pain and lack of air, but the defiance never wavered. "Make me." 2 words, breathed against his skin, a challenge no one had dared speak in a decade. Kale's wolf surged, demanding blood, demanding dominance, demanding she break. He dropped her. Arya hit the floor hard, coughing, chains clanging, but even gasping for air, she glared up at him with pure, undiluted hatred. "Lock her up," Kale said, turning away, because if he looked at her one more second, he'd do something irreversible. "North Tower, maximum security. No one talks to her. No one touches her. Is that clear?" "Your Majesty," Dane started. "Is that clear?" "Yes, Alpha." Guards moved in, hauling Arya to her feet. She didn't resist this time, couldn't, probably still recovering from nearly being strangled. But as they dragged her toward the doors, she twisted back. "You can cage me," she called out, voice raw but strong. "But you can't make me bow. You'll never make me bow." The doors slammed shut. Kale stood alone in his throne room, heart hammering, wolf pacing furious circles in his chest. Dane approached carefully. "What the hell was that?" "I don't know." "She resisted full alpha command. That's not possible, unless—" Dane's eyes widened. "The old bloodlines, the stories, are myths." Kale's voice was hard, absolute. "Bedtime stories to scare children." "Are they? Because I just watched a girl in chains withstand power that could make an alpha king submit." Kale rounded on him. "Do not finish that sentence." Dane held his ground, barely. "Someone needs to say it. If she's what the legends describe, then she's dangerous." Kael's amber eyes flashed. "More dangerous than any enemy we've faced, which means she stays locked up until I understand what we're dealing with." "And if we can't break her?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Kale walked back to his throne, every step heavy with a certainty he didn't actually feel. He sat down, forced his breathing to steady, his expression to ice. "Everyone breaks eventually," he said. "It's just a matter of finding the right pressure point." But even as he said it, he knew, deep in the part of him that dealt in truth rather than pride, that Arya Vale wasn't like everyone else, and that terrified him more than he'd ever admit. 3 days later, the North Tower was called the Tomb. Not officially, but every wolf in the kingdom knew what it meant. The highest cell in the tallest spire, carved into mountain rock where wind howled like dying wolves, and winter never really left. Prisoners sent there either broke or went insane. Sometimes both. Kyle had sent 43 wolves to the tomb in his reign. 37 had begged for death within a week. 6 had lasted longer. None had lasted 3 days without cracking. He stood outside the iron door now, Dane at his shoulder, 2 guards flanking the entrance with expressions carefully blank. "Has she said anything?" Kyle asked. "Not a word, Your Majesty," the senior guard reported. "She eats when we feed her, doesn't sleep much, just sits." "Sits?" "By the window, staring out." Kale frowned. "You've tried questioning her?" "Per your orders, we haven't engaged, but—" The guard hesitated. "But what?" "She hums sometimes, songs I don't recognize, and she talks to herself. Nothing that makes sense." "Give me an example." "Last night I heard her say, 7 stones, 7 seals, 7 kings who thought they could hold the sky." "Over and over." Dane muttered a curse. "That's old pack verse. Ancient. Dates back to before the kingdom unified." Kale filed that away. "Open it." The guards exchanged glances but obeyed. Heavy locks disengaged with metallic clanks. The door swung inward on hinges that screamed. The cell was exactly what it was designed to be. A hole, 10 feet by 10 feet, stone walls, stone floor, stone ceiling, 1 narrow window, more slit than window, letting in a knife edge of gray light, a bucket in the corner, a pile of straw that might generously be called a bed. And Arya. She sat cross-legged by the window, chains pooled around her like sleeping serpents. Her head was tilted back, eyes closed, face lifted toward that thin strip of sky. She didn't react when they entered. "Comfortable?" Kyle asked. "I've had worse." "You keep saying that." "Because it keeps being true." She didn't open her eyes. "What do you want, Your Majesty?" The title dripped with mockery. Kale nodded to Dane, who closed the door behind them, sealing the 3 of them in that tiny space. The temperature dropped. Shadows deepened. "I want answers," Kale said. "Then you're going to be disappointed." "Am I?" He moved closer, boots scraping stone. "Because I've had 3 days to research you, Arya Vale. And you know what I found?" That got her eyes open, green and sharp and waiting. "Nothing," Kyle continued. "No pack records. No birth registration. No territorial claims. It's like you didn't exist until a week ago." "Maybe I didn't." "Stop playing games. Stop asking stupid questions." Arya unfolded, rising to her feet with a grace that shouldn't have existed after 3 days in chains. "You want to know what I am? Where I came from? Why I can't submit to your alpha bullshit, and I'm not going to tell you." "Why not?" "Because—" She stepped closer, and something in the air shifted. Dane's hand went to his sword. Kyle held utterly still. "You wouldn't believe me if I did," Arya finished softly. Kale studied her, really looked. The bruises had faded faster than they should. The cut on her neck from Dane's claws, already sealed over. Accelerated healing, yes, but not wolf speed. Something different. "Try me," he said. Arya laughed, short, sharp, no humor. "All right, fine. You want the truth?" "Yes. I'm a null." Silence. Dane inhaled sharply. "That's not... Those are myths." "Are they?" Arya's smile was knife-thin. "Funny. That's what I thought about alpha kings who could make wolves submit with a word. Turns out some myths are just history people tried to forget." Kale's mind raced. Gnolls. The old stories, children's tales about bloodlines that predated the wolf packs. Humans who'd been something else. Something that made them immune to alpha command, immune to pack bonds, immune to the hierarchy that defined their entire civilization. They'd been hunted to extinction 400 years ago. Every text agreed. "Gnolls are extinct," he said flatly. "Sure looks that way, doesn't it?" Arya spread her arms, chains rattling. "Guess I'm a ghost then. Better get an exorcist." "This is insane," Dane started. "You watched her resist alpha command," Kale cut him off. "Full force. Explain that any other way." Dane's mouth worked silently. Kale turned back to Arya. "If you're telling the truth, I am. Then you're the last of your kind, which makes you valuable, extremely valuable." "Or extremely dangerous," Arya countered. "Depends on your perspective." "I haven't decided yet." "Take your time. I'm not going anywhere." She sat back down, chains settling around her. But while you're deciding, ask yourself something. What? Her eyes locked on his, and for just a second, Kael saw something flicker behind them. Not defiance, not hatred, fear, raw and real, and quickly buried. Ask yourself why gnolls were wiped out, Arya said quietly. Ask yourself what they did that scared Alpha Kings enough to hunt them down for 3 generations. Ask yourself if maybe, just maybe, your ancestors knew something you've forgotten. The words hit like cold water. Dane shifted uncomfortably. Your Majesty, we should... A commotion outside. Shouting, running footsteps. The door burst open. A guard, young, barely past his first shift, stumbled in, eyes wild. Your Majesty, the eastern border, raiders, massive force. They're pushing through Greystone Pass. Kyle was moving before the guard finished, Dane right behind him. At the door he paused, looked back at Arya. She hadn't moved, still sitting, still watching. This conversation isn't over, he said. I'll be here. That mocking smile again. Not like I can leave. Kael slammed the door. Locks engaged. He took the tower steps 3 at a time, mind already shifting to strategy, to deployments, to the 100 decisions that came with coordinating a defensive response. But a part of him stayed in that cell, wondering. If maybe the girl who couldn't kneel knew more about the coming war than anyone realized. The war room. Maps covered every surface. Red markers showed enemy positions, too many of them, spreading like cancer across the eastern territories. Blue markers represented Kael's forces, spread thin, trying to hold a border that kept collapsing. They hit us at dawn, Commander Lyssa reported, her scarred hands pointing to 3 separate breach points. Coordinated strikes. Professional. This isn't a raiding party, Your Majesty. This is an invasion force. Kael's jaw tightened. Numbers? 500 confirmed, maybe more in reserve. Against our what? 150 in that sector? 140, actually. We lost 10 in the initial strike. Fuck. Dane slammed a fist on the table. Who's leading them? What banner? That's the strange part. Lyssa's finger traced a pattern across the map. No banners. No identifying markers. Mixed pack scents. Wolves from at least 7 different territories, none allied with each other historically. Mercenaries, Kael said. Has to be. But who's paying them? And why hit us now? Good questions. No good answers. Kael stared at the map, seeing the pattern beneath the chaos. The attacks weren't random. They were strategic, designed to stretch his forces, force him to commit reserves, weaken the capital's defenses. Someone was probing for weakness, and they knew exactly where to push. Your Majesty, Lyssa's voice dropped. There's something else. The raiders, they're asking about someone. Kael's head snapped up. Who? A girl. Dark hair, green eyes. They're offering gold for information. A lot of gold. Cold certainty settled in Kael's gut. Arya. You think they're connected? I think there are no coincidences. Kael straightened, mind clicking through possibilities. Lyssa, pull back from Greystone. Reinforce Wolf Hollow and the northern approach. But Your Majesty, Greystone is the key defensive position, which is why they want us to commit there. It's a feint. The real push will come through the forest routes, bypass our strong points entirely. Lyssa studied the map, saw it, nodded sharply. I'll have troops moving within the hour. Dane, double the guard on the north tower. Dane frowned. You think they'll try for the prisoner? I think if someone's willing to field 500 mercenaries, they won't hesitate to hit the capital directly. Then maybe we should... Dane hesitated, choosing words carefully. Remove the complication, permanently. Kael's eyes went cold. No. Your Majesty, if she's the target, she's also our only leverage. If they want her alive, she's worth more to us breathing than dead. And if they're willing to burn the kingdom to get her? The question hung heavy. Kael had no answer, because Dane was right. The smart play, the alpha play, was to eliminate the variable, remove the threat, cut losses, and focus on the war. But something in him resisted. not sentiment. Kyle had killed for less than strategic advantage. Curiosity, maybe. The need to understand what made Arya Vale valuable enough to start a war over. Or maybe, and this thought disturbed him more, because she was the first thing in a decade he couldn't control, and some predatory part of his brain refused to let that go until he understood why. She stays alive, he said finally, but isolated, no contact, no information. She's a card we hold until we know who we're playing against. Dane didn't argue, smart enough to recognize an order when he heard one. The war meeting continued. Troop movements, supply lines, defensive positions. But underneath the tactics, underneath the strategy, one question burned. What the hell was Arya Vale? And why was she worth dying for? Batik, midnight. Kale couldn't sleep. Not unusual. Alphas didn't need much rest, and his mind was too wired with battle plans and contingencies to shut down properly. He'd tried. Laid in his massive bed, stared at the ceiling, listened to the distant sounds of troops mobilizing in the courtyard below. After an hour, he gave up. Now he walked the palace corridors, guards snapping to attention as he passed. He didn't acknowledge them, just walked, letting his feet choose direction while his mind chewed through problems. The raiders were too organized, too well-funded. The timing was too precise, hitting right after Arya appeared. And those questions she'd asked about why gnolls were hunted to extinction? His feet stopped. He was standing outside the royal library. Kale almost kept walking, but something, instinct, curiosity, the same stubborn need that kept him from killing Arya, made him push through the heavy doors. The library was massive. 3 stories of books, scrolls, ancient texts collected over centuries of rule. Moonlight poured through stained glass windows, painting everything in fractured colors. Kale went straight to the restricted section. The oldest texts, the dangerous ones, kept locked because they contained knowledge that challenged the established order, that questioned the foundations of Alpha rule. His father had forbidden him from reading them. His grandfather had burned half of them. Kyle had read them all anyway. He found what he was looking for wedged between volumes on blood magic and forgotten wars. A slim journal, leather cracked with age, pages yellow and brittle. Chronicles of the Null Wars, he murmured, opening it carefully. The handwriting was cramped, old-style script barely legible. But he'd read this before, years ago, dismissed it as paranoid rambling from a long-dead scholar. Now he read it differently. Cannot be commanded, cannot be bound. The Null bloodlines exist outside pack law, outside hierarchy, rendering them immune to alpha dominance. This alone would make them dangerous. But it is their other gift that drove the purge. They do not merely resist our power. They nullify it. Where a null stands, alpha command fails. Pack bonds weaken. The very structure that holds our civilization together crumbles. One null in a pack is like poison in the bloodstream. They corrupt the order, make wolves question their place, seed rebellion simply by existing. The Council of Kings convened. The decision was unanimous. Extermination. Not imprisonment. Not exile. Death. Complete and absolute. Hunt every null to the ends of the earth. Burn their villages. Salt their fields. Erase them from history so thoroughly that even the memory of their resistance dies with them. We succeeded, at great cost. 3 generations of war, thousands dead on both sides. But we broke them. The last confirmed null was executed in the year 1647, Third Era. The threat is ended. The hierarchy is preserved. May the gods forgive us for what we had to do. Kale closed the journal slowly. Arya's words echoed. Ask yourself what they did that scared Alpha Kings enough to hunt them down for 3 generations. They hadn't done anything. They just existed, and their existence threatened everything the Alphas had built. A sound made him turn, soft footsteps, barely audible. Dane emerged from the shadows. Couldn't sleep either? Something like that. Dane's eyes dropped to the journal. Old history? Relevant history. Kale set it back on the shelf. If Arya's telling the truth, if she really is null, then we have a problem bigger than raiders. Because she can't be controlled. Because word spreads. If the packs learn there's someone who can resist Alpha Command, someone who proves the hierarchy isn't absolute. Kale trailed off, but they both understood. Revolution, chaos, The end of everything they'd built. So we kill her, Dane said quietly, before anyone else knows. And the raiders? They'll just disappear? Better than the alternative. Maybe. Kael moved toward the window, staring out at his kingdom, the city sprawling below, lights flickering like stars, peaceful and ordered and built on the foundation of absolute alpha authority. Or maybe we're missing something. Like what? Why reveal herself? If she's null, if she knows what happened to her people, why walk into my throne room and show her hand? Why not run? Hide? She had to know what I'd do. Dane frowned, working through it. Unless she wanted to be caught. Or unless she's running from something worse than me. The thought settled between them like a stone. Dane's expression hardened. The raiders. They want her alive. Badly enough to start a war. That means she's valuable. Or she knows something. Or... Kael stopped. Or someone else wants to use her. Use what she is. To what end? Kael didn't answer. Because the answer was obvious, terrifying, and explained everything. If someone controlled a null, they could move through alpha territories with impunity, could recruit from packs without interference, could build an army that didn't respond to alpha command, couldn't be dominated, wouldn't submit. They could burn the kingdom from the inside out, and no alpha in the world could stop it. Double the guard, Kael said. Triple it. I want 20 wolves on that tower at all times, rotating shifts, no one gets in or out. Your Majesty, do it, now. Dane left without argument. Kael stood alone in the library, surrounded by centuries of knowledge and power and control. For the first time in his life, he felt none of it was enough. Ak, the North Tower. Dawn. Arya heard them coming. 20 pairs of boots, 20 sets of breathing. The guard rotation had changed an hour ago, doubled, then tripled. Someone was nervous. Good. She stood at her window slit, watching the sun crest the mountains. The light hurt her eyes after days in semi-darkness, but she didn't look away. Couldn't afford weakness. Not now. Not when everything was about to break. The door opened. She didn't turn. Persistent, aren't you? She said. We need to talk. Kael's voice, alone this time. So talk. She heard him move closer, felt his presence like heat against her back. Too close, invading her space. Classic dominance play. Amateur. Who's looking for you? He asked. Everyone. No one. Does it matter? 500 mercenaries say it matters. That made her turn. Kael stood 3 feet away. No guards, no Dane. Just him. Tall and powerful and currently radiating the kind of tightly controlled fury that would have sent most wolves running. Arya felt nothing but tired. They found me faster than I expected, she admitted. They? The people I ran from. The ones who want to use what I am. She smiled without warmth. Congratulations, Your Majesty. You've managed to put yourself directly in the path of something that will burn your kingdom to ash just to get to me. Kael's eyes flashed amber. Explain. Why should I? Because I'm the only thing standing between you and whatever's coming. Because you're in my territory, under my protection whether you want it or not. And because... He stepped closer, and this time Arya felt it. The weight of him. The alpha power coiled tight. If you think I'll hesitate to throw you to the wolves to save my people, you're wrong. Your people. Arya laughed, sharp and bitter. You mean your subjects, your wolves. The ones who kneel when you say kneel, who kill when you say kill, who don't have a single thought in their heads that you didn't put there. Careful. Why? You'll kill me? Please. I'm dead the moment they breach your walls anyway. At least this way I get to die telling the truth. Kael's hand shot out, grabbed her chin, forced her to meet his eyes. What truth? That you're terrified. That a girl in chains scares you more than an army at your gates. That everything you've built, your power, your throne, your precious hierarchy, is just a pretty lie wrapped around the truth that without alpha command, you're nothing. His grip tightened. She felt claws prick skin. I am the Alpha King, he growled. I've ruled for 10 years, fought off pretenders, crushed rebellions, held this kingdom together through war and famine, and you've never met anyone you couldn't break. Arya's voice dropped to a whisper. Until me. The silence stretched. Kael released her, stepped back, breathing hard. His eyes were pure wolf now, amber and wild and dangerous. You want to know the truth? Arya continued, rubbing her jaw. Fine. Here it is. There's a pack, call themselves the Covenant, led by an alpha named Soren. He's been hunting gnolls for 20 years. Found my mother when I was 12, killed her, kept me. Why? Because gnolls can't be commanded, which means if you control us through other means, pain, leverage, hostages, you have soldiers who can walk into any territory and not trigger pack instincts. Perfect spies, perfect assassins, perfect weapons. Kael's expression darkened. He used you. For 8 years. No emotion, just fact. Until I killed my handler and ran. How long ago? 2 weeks, give or take. And they tracked you here. They track me everywhere. I don't stay caught. But I can't outrun them forever either. Arya met his eyes, and for the first time, let him see the exhaustion underneath. So here's your choice, Alpha King. Hand me over, save your kingdom from a war you didn't start. Or keep me, fight a battle you can't win, and watch everyone you swore to protect burn because you couldn't let go of your pride. She laid it out clean, simple, the kind of ruthless calculus that alphas understood. But Kael didn't answer. He just stared at her, expression unreadable, wheels turning behind those amber eyes. Finally, how many? What? Covenant wolves. How many? In the Covenant? Hundreds. Spread across territories from here to the coast. Soren's network is bigger than your kingdom. But how many hunting you personally? Arya frowned, thrown by the question. Maybe 50? The raiders at your border are probably advanced scouts. The main force will be a week behind, maybe less. And Soren himself? He'll come. Eventually. He doesn't like losing his toys. Kael nodded slowly, like she'd just confirmed something. Then he smiled. Not the polite political smile of a king. The feral, violent smile of a wolf who'd just scented blood. Good, he said. Arya blinked. Good? I was starting to get bored. This should be interesting. Are you insane? They'll destroy you. They'll try. Kael turned toward the door, then paused. One more question. These gnolls that Soren's been hunting for 20 years, how many has he found? Why does... Answer the question, Arya. She swallowed. 7, including me. And where are the other 6? The silence was answer enough. I'm the last one, Arya whispered. He killed the others when they stopped being useful. Kael nodded like she had just given him the final piece of a puzzle. Then you're not going anywhere, because if you're the last null, the last living proof that alpha power has limits, then you're not a complication. He looked back at her, and something in his expression made her breath catch. You're a weapon, and I don't hand over weapons to my enemies. He left. The door slammed, locks engaged. Arya stood frozen, mind racing. What the hell had just happened? The Alpha King, the man who should have killed her or traded her the moment he understood the threat, just declared her an asset. Not protection, not mercy. A weapon. Which meant Kyle Draven was either the most arrogant fool she'd ever met or the most dangerous man in the kingdom. And standing in that cell, chains heavy around her wrists, Arya realized something that made her blood run cold. She couldn't tell which. The War Council convened at noon. Kael stood at the head of the table, maps sprawled before him like prophecies of blood. Every alpha in his inner circle was present. Dane, Lisa, Marcus, who'd barely survived his earlier humiliation, and 3 territorial commanders who'd ridden through the night to reach the capital. They all felt it. The shift in the air. The way Kael's energy had changed from controlled fury to something colder, more deliberate, predatory. The Covenant will hit us within 4 days, Kael said without preamble. Maybe less if they force march. Soren wants the girl. He'll burn everything between here and the border to get her. Commander Reese, a grizzled alpha with more scars than skin, grunted. Then give her to him. War over. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Kael's eyes found Reese. Didn't blink. Say that again. Reese held his ground, veteran enough to know when to push, stupid enough to do it anyway. I said give him the girl. One prisoner against the whole kingdom. That's not a choice. That's basic math. Is it? Kale's voice was silk over razor wire. Tell me, Reese, how many wolves in your command? 200, give or take. And if I ordered you to kneel right now, cut your own throat, would you do it? Reese's face went tight. That's different. How? Kale leaned forward, palms flat on the table. I'm your Alpha King. My word is law. My command is absolute. You'd die if I told you to, wouldn't you? Yes, but nothing. That's the foundation of everything we've built. Hierarchy, submission, Alpha's command, wolves obey. It's not negotiable. It's not conditional. It's the only thing keeping this kingdom from tearing itself apart. He paused, let it sink in. Now imagine if someone existed who couldn't be commanded, who stood in a room full of alphas and didn't feel a goddamn thing. Silence. That girl upstairs? Kyle continued. She's proof that our power has limits, that Alpha Command isn't absolute. And if word spreads, if wolves across the kingdom learn that submission is a choice, not a certainty, what do you think happens to your 200? Lissa spoke up, voice careful. Rebellion. Worse. Chaos. Every wolf questioning their place. Every beta wondering if they could resist. Every omega asking why they bow. Kyle straightened. The Covenant doesn't want Arya Vale because she's special. They want her because she's a weapon, a walking virus that infects the hierarchy just by existing. Marcus cleared his throat. So you're saying we should kill her before she corrupts? I'm saying we keep her, and we study her, and we learn how to neutralize what she is before Soren uses it against us. Dane's jaw tightened. Your Majesty, with respect, keeping her is insane. Every second she's alive, she's a target. The Covenant will never stop coming. Good. The word hung in the air like a challenge. Good? Dane repeated. Soren's been operating in shadows for 20 years, building his network, recruiting wolves loyal to him instead of their alphas. That's treason on a scale we haven't seen since the Unification Wars. But he's been careful, staying hidden, never giving us a target. Kael's smile was all teeth. Until now. Now he has to come out, has to commit his forces, has to show his hand. Because he wants the null, Lisa said slowly. Because he needs her. And need makes people reckless. Reese shook his head. This is gambling with the kingdom as the stakes. This is war. There are no safe plays. Kael's voice hardened. Soren's coming whether we give him Arya or not. The question is whether we fight him on our terms or his. I choose ours. The alphas exchanged glances. No one argued. When Kael spoke with that tone, absolute, final, objection was suicide. Lissa, Kael continued, pull every garrison within 3 days' march. I want 2,000 wolves surrounding this palace by sundown tomorrow. That leaves the outer territories exposed. Let them be exposed. Soren wants the capital. Give him the target, fortify it, until not even gods could breach it. And the girl? Moves to the inner keep, maximum security. I want her watched every second. Dane frowned. You don't trust the North Tower? I don't trust anything. The tower's isolated, too easy to hit from outside. The keep has 20 feet of stone between her and the world. If the Covenant wants her, they'll have to go through me. The message was clear. This wasn't protection. This was possession. They moved Arya at dusk. 20 guards. Full armor. Swords drawn. Through corridors emptied of servants and courtiers, down spiral stairs carved from mountain rock, into the heart of the palace where the old dungeons had been converted into high-security cells. Arya walked in the center of the formation, chains still locked around her wrists, silent except for the metallic scrape of shackles against stone. She didn't fight, didn't speak, just observed. The new cell was bigger than the tower, 15 by 20 feet. Actual furniture, a cot with a thin mattress, a table, 2 chairs, a privy behind a stone partition, luxury by dungeon standards. Also, no windows, no natural light, just 4 walls of seamless rock and a single iron door with a slot for food, a cage pretending to be a room. The guards locked her in without ceremony. Arya heard them take positions outside, multiple sets of breathing, heartbeats steady. Professional. She sat on the cot, testing the mattress, straw and cloth. Better than the tower, but not by much. The door opened again. Kyle entered alone. He filled the space immediately, presence expanding to every corner like smoke. Arya felt her hackles rise. Instinct, not fear. Her body responding to threat even when her mind knew he couldn't command her. Comfortable? Kale asked. Comparatively, Arya leaned back against the wall, affecting casual. Though I'm noticing a distinct lack of windows. Feeling insecure, Your Majesty. Feeling practical. He pulled out a chair, sat backward on it, arms crossed over the backrest. We need to talk. We've been talking. No, you've been deflecting. I've been guessing. That ends now. Arya raised an eyebrow. Or what? Or nothing. No threats. No commands. Just a conversation between two people who are currently trapped in the same shitstorm. That wasn't what she expected. Kale watched her process it, something like amusement flickering behind his eyes. Surprised? You don't strike me as the let's talk it out type. I'm not, but you've already proven threats don't work on you, and I'm smart enough to know when to change tactics. How pragmatic. I'm an alpha. Pragmatism keeps you alive. He tilted his head, studying her. Tell me about Soren. Arya's expression closed down. No. Why not? Because knowing won't help you. It'll just make you overconfident. And overconfident alphas die fast. I'll risk it. Will you? She leaned forward, chain scraping. You think you can beat him because you're the Alpha King, because you've ruled for 10 years without serious challenge, because in your territory, your word is law and your power is absolute. I don't think. I know. You know shit. The words came out harsh, bitter. Soren's been an alpha since before you were born. He's fought in wars you've only read about. And he's built something you can't even comprehend, a network that doesn't rely on alpha command or pack bonds or any of the structures you take for granted. He creates loyalty through fear, leverage, and manipulation. And that makes him more dangerous than 1,000 traditional alphas. Kale's expression didn't change. You're terrified of him. I'm realistic about him. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm sitting, you ran straight into enemy territory and practically begged to be captured. That's not strategy. That's desperation. The accuracy stung. Arya forced her breathing steady. Maybe I was tired of running. Or maybe you wanted a bigger monster to hide behind. Direct hit. She felt the impact in her chest, sharp and cold. Because he was right. Part of her, the exhausted, hunted part that had been running for 2 weeks straight, had seen Kael's reputation and thought, he's strong enough. He's brutal enough. Maybe he can hold them off long enough for me to find another way out. Cowardice dressed up as strategy. You don't know what you're talking about, she said quietly. Don't I? Kale stood, moving closer. You've been on the run for years, always moving, never settling. No pack, no allies, no connections, just survival. And then you stumble into my territory, make a scene in my throne room, show exactly what you are to the one person who could either protect you or destroy you. He crouched in front of her, eye level. That's not accident, Arya. That's calculated risk. And what if it was? She met his stare, refusing to back down. What if I did choose you deliberately? Doesn't change the facts. Soren's coming. He'll bring an army. And when he gets here, all your posturing and alpha bullshit won't mean a damn thing. You're right. That stopped her. Kale's smile was thin. Alpha Command won't beat him. Traditional warfare won't beat him. Everything I've built my power on, dominance, hierarchy, submission, it's all useless against someone who spent 2 decades undermining those exact structures. Then you understand, I understand that I need a different weapon. His eyes locked on hers, amber and intense and absolutely unwavering. I need you. Arya's laugh came out strangled. I'm not a weapon, I'm a person. You're both. You just haven't accepted it yet. Fuck you. Listen to me. Kael's voice dropped, losing the alpha edge, becoming something rawer, more human. Soren wants you because you're null, because you can move through pack territories without triggering instincts, can resist commands, can corrupt hierarchies just by existing. That makes you valuable to him, but it makes you equally valuable to me. I won't fight for you. I'm not asking you to fight. I'm asking you to survive. Because if Soren takes you, he'll use you to destroy everything, every pack, every territory, the entire kingdom structure. He'll burn it all down and build something worse in its place. And you're so much better? Arya shot back. You, who keeps wolves in line through fear? Who crushes rebellion before it starts? Who'd kill anyone who questions your authority? Yes. No hesitation, no apology. At least I'm honest about what I am, Kael continued. I don't pretend my power is benevolent. I don't dress up tyranny as freedom. I rule through strength because that's what keeps the kingdom stable, what keeps wolves alive. He paused. Soren sells a dream, liberation from alpha control, equality, choice. And then he twists those dreams into chains worse than any I could forge. At least my wolves know where they stand. Arya wanted to argue, wanted to throw his words back in his face, but she couldn't, because she'd lived under Soren's liberation, had seen what happened to wolves who believed his promises. You think you're different, she said instead, but you're just another alpha who wants to own me. Wrong. Kael stood, putting distance between them. I don't want to own you. I want to use you. There's a distinction, not one that matters, doesn't it? He turned back, expression unreadable. Ownership is permanent, a claim staked, a bond forged. Usage is temporary, transactional. When this is over, when Soren's dealt with, you walk away, free, no strings. Arya stared at him. You're lying. Am I? Check. He didn't move, didn't push alpha pressure, just stood there, open, letting her feel for the deception. She found none, which was worse, because if Kael was telling the truth, if he really would let her go after, then she had no moral high ground, no righteous anger to hide behind. Just a choice. Help him, survive, and walk away. Or refuse, watch him fall, and get dragged back to Soren anyway. Why should I trust you? She asked. You shouldn't. Trust is earned, and we just met. Kael moved toward the door, paused with his hand on the iron. But you don't have to trust me. You just have to trust that I'm a better option than the alternative. He left. The door closed. Locked. Arya sat in the silence, chains heavy in her lap, mind spinning. Kael Draven was dangerous. Not because of his power, not because of his ruthlessness, but because he made sense. And that terrified her more than anything Soren had ever done. Day 2. The Covenant arrived early. Scouts reported movement at dawn, advance forces, maybe 100 strong, pushing through the eastern passes faster than projected. They hit the outer defenses at Wolf Hollow before noon. The garrison held for 3 hours, then collapsed. Word reached the capital by mid-afternoon. Wolf Hollow fallen, 70 wolves dead, survivors scattered into the mountains. The Covenant was marching on the secondary positions, moving with precision that spoke of inside knowledge. Someone had betrayed them. Kael stood in the war room, staring at casualty reports, jaw tight enough to crack teeth. Around him, his commanders argued strategy, fallback positions, reinforcement deployment, scorched earth tactics. He heard none of it. His mind was 3 moves ahead, calculating possibilities, running scenarios, finding the pattern beneath the chaos. Soren wasn't just attacking, he was probing, testing defenses, identifying weak points, pushing just hard enough to force commitment without revealing his full strength. Classic strategy. Draw out the enemy, make them commit reserves, then hit them where they're weakest, which meant the real attack hadn't started yet. Your Majesty. Kael blinked, focused. Lissa was staring at him, concern creasing her scarred features. What? I asked if we should pull back from the river positions. If they've taken Wolf Hollow. No! Kael's voice cut through the chatter like a blade. We hold the river every inch. But Your Majesty, if they outflank us, they won't. Because that's what Soren wants us to think. He hits Wolf Hollow, we panic, pull resources to defend the approaches, and leave the capital vulnerable. Kael tapped the map. The garrison was a sacrifice. He's counting on us overreacting. Rhys frowned. So we do nothing? We do exactly enough. Reinforce the river, but leave the capital garrison intact. When Soren commits his main force, we'll see it coming. And if we're wrong, then we're dead anyway. At least this way we die on our feet. The Alphas absorbed that, nodded, started implementing orders. Dane approached as the room cleared. You think he'll come himself? Eventually, but not yet. He's patient. He'll grind us down first, wait until we're exhausted, and then strike. Kale rolled his shoulders, trying to ease tension that had lived there for days. How's our prisoner? Quiet. She's been staring at the wall for 6 hours straight. Eating? Barely. Refuses to talk to the guards. Kale grunted. I'll deal with it. Your Majesty. Dane hesitated. Are you sure about this? Using her? No, but I'm out of good options. He left before Dane could argue, taking the stairs down to the keep 2 at a time. Guards snapped to attention as he passed. He ignored them, mind already shifting gears, preparing for the conversation ahead. The cell door opened. Arya looked up from where she sat cross-legged on the floor. She'd been tracing patterns in the dust, symbols Kyle didn't recognize, geometric and strange. Meditation? He asked. Memory. She didn't stop drawing. My mother taught me. Said if you keep the patterns alive, the people who made them never really die. Kale studied the symbols. What do they mean? Resistance. Her finger completed a final curve. Every Null family had their own mark, a way to recognize each other, to remember we existed. Past tense. They're all dead. Past tense is accurate. Kale pulled out the chair, sat. Wolf Hollow fell this morning. Arya's hand stilled. How many? 70 confirmed, more missing. Soren's moving faster than I thought. He has inside information. Someone in my command is feeding him intelligence. Probably more than one someone. The Covenant doesn't do single points of failure. Arya looked up, eyes shadowed. You're losing. I'm adapting. That's alpha, for I don't have a fucking clue what to do next. Close enough. Kyle leaned forward, elbows on knees. Which is why I'm here. I need information, real information. How Soren operates, how he recruits, how he turns loyal wolves into traitors. And if I tell you, you buy yourself bargaining power and maybe keep more wolves from dying. Appealing to my conscience, bold strategy. I'm not appealing to anything. I'm stating facts. You want to survive, I need intelligence. That's the transaction. Arya studied him for a long moment, then sighed. Fine. But you're not going to like it. I rarely do. She stood, chain scraping, and began to pace. Small circles in the confined space, like a caged animal remembering what movement felt like. Soren doesn't recruit wolves, she said. He collects them, finds the broken ones. The ones who've been hurt by alphas, cast out of packs, denied rank or status. He offers them belonging, purpose, a chance to matter. Cult tactics. Effective cult tactics. By the time they realize what he is, they're in too deep. He has leverage, family, secrets, debts. And if leverage fails, he has me. She stopped pacing, met Kale's eyes. Had me. Gnolls can identify wolves who are resisting alpha command, who are faking submission, who are planning rebellion. I was his insurance policy, his way to root out traitors before they became problems. Kyle felt cold certainty settle in his gut. You can sense it, the resistance. Not exactly. It's more like reading tension. When someone's submitting because they have to versus because they want to, there's a difference, a dissonance. Most alphas can't feel it because they're too used to absolute obedience, but I can. Which means you know who in my command is compromised. Arya's silence was answer enough. Kyle stood slowly, energy shifting, not threatening, focused. Tell me. No. Arya, no. Her voice was steel. Because if I give you names, you'll kill them. And then Soren will know I'm helping you. And then I become useless to you, which means I'm dead anyway. You're already helping me just by being here. I'm a hostage. That's different than an asset. The moment I actively betray Soren, I cross a line I can't uncross. Kale wanted to argue, wanted to push, but he recognized the logic. She was right. Goddamn her, she was right. So what do you suggest? He asked instead. I suggest you stop trying to play Soren's game. You can't out-manipulate him. You can't out-spy him. He's been doing this for 20 years. Arya moved closer, close enough that he could see gold flecks in her green eyes. But you can do what he can't. Which is? Be honest. With your wolves. With yourself. About what's coming. Kale frowned. Honesty is weakness. Honesty is clarity. Your wolves are scared. They can feel the tension, sense the betrayal in their ranks, know something's wrong. And you're keeping them in the dark because you think information is control. She paused. But fear without understanding creates paranoia. And paranoia is what Soren feeds on. You want me to tell my army we have traitors in our midst? That'll destroy morale. It'll give them a target. Right now, they're afraid of shadows. Give them something concrete to fight, and they'll rally. That's what alphas do best. Focus aggression. Kale stared at her. The suggestion was insane. It was also brilliant. You've thought about this, he said slowly. I've had 8 years to think about how to fight Soren. Never had the strength to do it myself. But you? She gestured at him, chains rattling. You have an army, resources, power, everything I never had. And you're just offering this out of altruism? I'm offering it because if you fall, I'm next. Survival isn't altruism, it's pragmatism. Her smile was sharp. Thought you'd appreciate that. He did. God help him, he did. One condition, Kael said. Of course there is. You work with me, directly. I need that sense you have. The ability to read resistance. We screen every wolf in the command structure. You identify the compromised ones. I handle them quietly. No mass purges, no panic, just surgical removal. Arya's expression hardened. You're asking me to be what Soren made me, his hunting dog. I'm asking you to choose a side. There are no sides, just different cages. Then pick the cage you can survive. Kael held her gaze, refusing to blink. Because in 3 days, maybe less, Soren's going to be at our gates. And when that happens, there's no neutral ground. You're either with me or with him. The ultimatum hung between them, sharp as broken glass. Arya's jaw tightened, her hands, still bound in chains, clenched into fists. If I do this, she said quietly, if I help you root out his people, you get protection, resources, and when it's over, freedom. You promise that? I promise nothing, but I keep my word when it serves me, and right now, keeping you alive serves me. Brutal honesty, no false comfort, just the cold transaction between two people who understood how power actually worked. Arya laughed, short, sharp, without humor. You really are a bastard. Yes, but I'm a bastard who might keep you breathing. Kael extended his hand. Do we have a deal? She stared at his hand, at the offer wrapped in threats and pragmatism and the kind of ruthless clarity that made her want to scream. Then she reached out and shook. Deal, she said. But I have one condition of my own. Which is? Her grip tightened. When this is over, when Soren's dead and the covenant's broken, you let me walk away. No tracking, no surveillance, no insurance policies to make sure I stay loyal. I help you win, then I disappear. Forever. Kael considered, then nodded. Agreed. They released hands. And in that moment, standing in a cell deep beneath a palace at war, two people who should have been enemies became something stranger, allies, or at least co-conspirators in survival. So, Arya said, settling back against the wall. Where do we start? Kael's smile was predatory. With the wolves who think they can lie to an alpha king and live. Deed. The screening. They brought in the first suspect at midnight, Beta Garrett, mid-30s. Solid record, 14 years of service, 3 commendations for bravery. Also, contact with known Covenant sympathizers 6 months ago, though never confirmed. He knelt before Kael's desk, head bowed, shoulders tense with the particular fear that came from being summoned in the middle of the night without explanation. Your Majesty, Garrett said, voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. You called for me? I did. Kael sat sprawled in his chair, casual, unthreatening. Relax, Garrett. You're not in trouble. Then why? Routine check. With the Covenant pushing our borders, I'm reviewing security protocols, making sure everyone's where they should be. Garrett's shoulders eased, slightly. Of course, Your Majesty. Whatever you need. Behind Kael, hidden in the shadows of the private study, Arya watched. She couldn't see Garrett's face clearly, didn't need to. His scent told her everything. Fear, yes, but clean fear. The kind that came from confusion, not guilt. Tell me about your patrol routes last month, Kale continued, voice mild. Garrett recited them, precise, detailed, no hesitation. Arya felt nothing, no dissonance, no resistance. Just a wolf being honest with his alpha. She caught Kale's eyes, shook her head minutely. Kale nodded. Thank you, Garrett. You're dismissed. That's all, Your Majesty? That's all. Send in Lieutenant Hess on your way out. Garrett left, confusion clear in his posture. Arya stepped out of the shadows. He's clean. You're sure? As sure as I can be. His submission is genuine. No cracks. Good. Kale made a note. Next. They screened 15 wolves that night. 13 came back clean, 2 didn't. The first was a junior guard named Kellen, 23, newly promoted, eager to please and utterly terrified of Kale's presence. But when asked about his movements during the Wolf Hollow attack, his fear spiked wrong. Too sharp, too specific. Arya felt it like static on her skin, the dissonance of someone trying too hard to seem obedient while their mind screamed resistance. She signaled Kyle. His eyes narrowed. Kellen, where were you the night before Wolf Hollow fell? On duty, Your Majesty. North Wall. You can check the logs. I'm checking with you. Yes, North Wall, full shift, nothing unusual. Liar. Arya didn't need to say it. Kale heard it in the slight hitch of breath, the way Kellen's pulse jumped. Who else was with you? Beta Marcus and guards Fenn and Reardon. Interesting. Kyle leaned forward. Because Marcus reported being sick that night, logged it with the infirmary. So either you're lying about who was there, or he is. Kellen went pale. I must have gotten the nights confused. Must have. Kale stood, moved around the desk with predatory grace. Or maybe you were somewhere else entirely. Maybe you were passing information to someone outside these walls. Maybe you're the reason 70 of my wolves are dead. No, Your Majesty, please, I swear. Swear on what? Your loyalty? Kale's voice went cold. Because your loyalty is exactly what's in question. Kellen broke. Not physically, but Arya saw it. The moment his carefully constructed lies collapsed and raw terror took over. They have my sister, he gasped. Soren's people. They took her 3 months ago, said they'd kill her if I didn't what? Report movements, troop numbers, guard rotations. Please, Your Majesty, I never wanted to betray you, but she's all I have left. Kael's expression didn't change. Where is she now? I don't know. They move her. Every few weeks, I get messages, proof she's alive, but you've never actually seen her since they took her. Kellen's silence was confirmation. Arya felt something twist in her chest. She knew this play. Soren used it constantly. Take someone a wolf loved, dangle hope of rescue, extract cooperation in exchange for a reunion that would never come. By the time they realized the hostage was probably already dead, they were in too deep to back out. Kale circled Kellen slowly. You understand what you've done. Yes, Your Majesty. You understand the penalty. Yes, Your Majesty. Tears streamed down Kellen's face. But please, if there's any chance she's alive, if you could just... I'll find out. Kale's voice was iron. And if she's alive, I'll get her back. But you're confined until this is over. No contact, no messages, no chance to warn anyone about what we know. Kellen's head dropped. Thank you, Your Majesty. Guards took him away. Arya waited until they were alone. You won't get his sister back. Probably not. But you let him hope. Hope keeps him compliant. Despair makes him desperate. Desperate people make mistakes. Kale returned to his desk, made another note. This is war, Arya. I use what works. She wanted to argue, wanted to call him cruel, but she'd seen Soren do worse, and at least Kyle was honest about his manipulation. Who's next? She asked instead. The second compromised wolf was harder. Commander Lysa. Arya felt it the moment she entered, that same dissonance, that fractured quality of submission hiding resistance. But stronger, more controlled. Lysa had been doing this longer. Kale noticed Arya's reaction. His expression didn't change, but something in his energy sharpened. Lysa, he said warmly. Thank you for coming. Of course, Your Majesty. Lysa sat, relaxed. a veteran of 1,000 briefings. You wanted to discuss Wolf Hollow? Among other things, your report mentioned unusual troop movements before the attack. Yes, nothing concrete, but our scouts reported increased chatter, encrypted signals we couldn't break. They talked for 10 minutes. Strategy, tactics, details that sounded entirely reasonable. And through it all, Arya felt the lie underneath. Not in Lissa's words. Those were probably mostly true. But in her intent. In the way she offered information carefully, withholding just enough, steering Kael toward conclusions that served someone else's narrative. Masterful. If Arya hadn't been looking for it, she'd never have caught it. When Lissa left, Arya waited a full minute before speaking. She's deep cover, she said quietly. Been working for Soren for years, probably. Everything she just told you was accurate enough to verify, but structured to hide what actually matters. Kael's jaw tightened. Lissa's been with me since the beginning. Fought beside me in the border wars, saved my life twice. I know, that's what makes her so dangerous. You're certain? Arya met his eyes, nodded. For the first time that night, Kael looked genuinely shaken. What do I do? He asked, and the question felt heavier than it should, because it wasn't just tactical. It was personal. Lissa was pack, family, and she'd been lying to him for years. You can't kill her, Arya said. She's too visible. People would ask questions. I know. And you can't confront her. She'll just deny it, go underground. I know that too. So you keep her close. Feed her information that seems valuable but isn't. Let her report to Soren, and when the moment's right, I use her to feed him poison. Kael's expression hardened. Turn the spy into a weapon. Exactly. They stood in silence, the weight of betrayal settling between them like ash. She really saved your life? Arya asked. Twice. Maybe 3 times, depending on how you count. And you're still going to use her? Yes. That doesn't bother you? Kael looked at her, and for a moment, just a moment, she saw past the Alpha King to something raw underneath. It bothers me more than you know, he said quietly. But I'm responsible for thousands of wolves. Their survival outweighs my feelings. It always has. Arya understood then. The price of being alpha. Not the power, not the control. The isolation. The burden of making decisions no one else could make, bearing consequences no one else would understand, sacrificing pieces of yourself until you weren't sure what was left that wasn't just duty and necessity and the brutal mathematics of survival. She'd hated alphas her whole life. But standing there, watching Kael grapple with a betrayal that would destroy most wolves, she felt something shift. Not sympathy, understanding. Next? She asked, voice softer. Kael nodded, gratitude flickering across his features, too fast to name. And they continued. Through the night, through the pain, until the list of traitors was complete and the real war could finally begin. Right. Day 3. Dawn. Soren's main force arrived with the sun. 3,000 wolves, full battle array, banners flying. Not the Covenant's mark, but a dozen different pack symbols united under a single purpose. They stopped half a mile from the capital walls and waited. Kael stood on the ramparts, watching the army assemble with cold precision. Around him, his commanders observed in grim silence. 3,000 against his 2,000. But numbers weren't the worst part. The worst part was how organized they were. How disciplined. This wasn't a raiding party or a rebel mob. This was a professional military force, trained and equipped and led by someone who understood war at a level most alphas never reached. He's not attacking, Dane observed. Not yet. Kael's eyes tracked movement in the enemy camp. He's making a point, which is that he could, that he has the strength to take the capital if he wants, but he's giving us a choice first. Surrender the girl. Surrender the girl. As if on cue, a rider detached from the enemy formation. Single wolf. Unarmed, carrying a white banner, parley. Kael descended from the wall, Dane and 20 guards falling in around him. They met the messenger at the gate, close enough to talk, far enough that retreat was possible. The messenger was young, female, looked barely old enough to have completed her first shift. Message from Alpha Soren, she said, voice clear despite obvious nerves. He wishes to speak with King Kael, alone, under flag of truce. Tell your alpha I don't negotiate with traitors. He anticipated that response. The girl pulled a sealed letter from her jacket. Said to give you this if you refused. Kale took it, broke the seal, read. His expression went very, very still. Your Majesty? Dane asked. Kale handed him the letter without a word. Dane read, went pale. He can't know that. He does. Kale's voice was flat, emotionless, the tone of someone who'd just had a knife slipped between their ribs and was refusing to acknowledge the pain. What does it say? One of the guards whispered. Dane looked at Kale. Kale nodded permission. Soren knows we've been screening the troops, knows we've identified his spies, and he's offering a trade. Arya Vale for the location of Kellen's sister, proof she's alive, returned safely. Silence crashed down, because everyone understood what that meant. Soren had known they'd find Kellen, had known they'd use him as bait, had been 3 steps ahead the entire time. This wasn't a war. It was a chess match, and they were losing. Tell your alpha, Kyle said slowly, each word carved from ice, that I'll meet him, tomorrow at dawn. Neutral ground between our forces. The messenger nodded, retreating quickly. When she was gone, Dane rounded on Kale. You can't actually be considering this. I'm not considering anything. I'm buying time. For what? To figure out how Soren's getting information. Kale started back toward the palace, mind already racing. We screened everyone, found the compromised wolves, locked down communications, and he still knew, which means we missed something. Or someone, Dane said grimly. They walked in silence, the weight of impossible choices pressing down like atmosphere. Back in the keep, Arya waited. She took one look at Kyle's face and knew. He's here. Half a mile out, 3,000 strong. And he wants to talk. He wants you. Kale poured himself a drink, downed it in one burning swallow, in exchange for information that might save a young guard's sister, might being the key word. Arya felt the trap closing. You're not actually No. But he knows I'm tempted. Knows I'm calculating the trade. One null against potential peace, saved lives, strategic advantage. Kale refilled the glass. Didn't drink. Just stared at it. He's forcing me to think like him, to weigh human lives against tactical necessity. And the fucked up part is, it would work. Arya said it because he couldn't. Kale's hands tightened on the glass. If I was purely logical, if I was the alpha I'm supposed to be, I'd make the trade. One prisoner, however valuable, against 3,000 enemy combatants standing down. But you're not going to. No. Why not? He looked at her, really looked. And she saw something in his eyes she hadn't expected. Respect. Because you were right, he said quietly. About Soren, about the Covenant, about what I'd be sacrificing. If I give you to him, I don't just lose a tactical asset. I prove that my word means nothing, that my promises can be bought. And if my wolves can't trust my word, he stopped, set down the glass. Then I'm already defeated. The admission hung between them, raw, honest, dangerous. So what happens tomorrow? Arya asked. Tomorrow I meet Soren, and I figure out what he really wants. He wants me. No. Kale's smile was sharp. He wants to see if I'll break, if I'll choose pragmatism over principle, if I'll sacrifice you to save myself. And when you don't, then the real war starts. Arya absorbed that, the finality of it, the point of no return rapidly approaching. Kyle, don't. He held up a hand. Don't ask me to reconsider. Don't tell me it's not worth it. I've made my choice. I was going to say thank you. That stopped him. For what? For being stupid enough to keep me alive when every logical calculation says you shouldn't. She managed a small smile. For being the first alpha who ever chose the hard right over the easy wrong. Kael's expression softened, just for a second, then hardened again as footsteps pounded down the corridor. A guard burst in. Your Majesty, the North Gate. We're under attack. They ran. Upstairs, through corridors, onto the wall where smoke billowed thick and black. The North Gate was burning. Not from siege weapons. From inside. Sabotage! Someone screamed, and then the real nightmare began. Because while Soren's army waited half a mile south, 50 wolves, Covenant infiltrators who'd been hiding in plain sight for months, struck from within. They'd been waiting for this moment, for the capital's guard to be focused outward, for Kael's attention to be divided. And now they moved with lethal precision, cutting through defenses, opening gates, creating chaos. "Close the inner gates!" Kael roared. "Fall back to secondary positions!" But it was already too late. The saboteurs had timed it perfectly. The north gate collapsed in a shower of flame and timber, and through the gap, Covenant wolves poured like a flood. Kael drew his sword, alpha power flooding through him. But even as he moved, even as his guards formed ranks and battle was joined, one thought burned clear. Soren had played them from the start. The army outside wasn't the real threat. It was the distraction. And somewhere in the chaos and fire and screaming, Arya Vale, the girl who couldn't kneel, the last null, the weapon neither side could afford to lose, was about to become a prize in a game that would determine the fate of the kingdom. Kael turned, already running back toward the keep. But deep in his gut, cold certainty whispered, he was already too late. The cell door hung open, guards dead on the floor. And Arya, gone. The blood was still warm. Kael stood in the doorway of Arya's cell, staring at the bodies. 3 guards, good wolves, loyal wolves, throats cut with surgical precision. No struggle, no warning, just efficient murder by someone who knew exactly where to strike. The chains lay empty on the floor. Dane appeared at his shoulder, breathing hard. "Your Majesty, the attackers broke through the east corridor. We're holding them, but..." He stopped, saw the bodies, went pale. "Fuck!" "How long?" Kyle's voice was flat, dead. "Since the alarm? Maybe 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Arya could be anywhere. Could be out of the palace entirely if whoever took her moved fast enough. Could already be back with Soren. "Lock down every exit," Kael said. "No one leaves. No one enters. I want every corridor searched, every room cleared. Find her." "Your Majesty, the battle is a distraction. This..." Kael gestured at the carnage. "This was the real objective. Find her." Dane ran. Kael stood alone, mind racing through possibilities. The rescue had been perfectly timed. The saboteurs struck precisely when attention was divided, when guards were pulled to reinforce the gates, when Arya was most vulnerable. Inside job. Had to be. But they'd screened everyone, identified the compromised wolves. Unless... Cold realization washed through him. Unless the screening itself was compromised. Unless Arya had been lying from the start. No. Kael rejected the thought immediately. He'd watched her identify Kellen, watched the dissonance when Lyssa spoke. That wasn't faked, couldn't be faked, which meant someone else, someone they'd missed, or someone they'd trusted. He was moving before the thought finished forming, taking stairs 3 at a time, heading for the war room where his commanders coordinated the defense. Lyssa stood over the tactical map, directing troop movements with practiced efficiency. Her face was smoke-stained, hair singed from fire. She looked up as Kael entered. "Your Majesty, thank the gods, the north gate is holding, but we need to reinforce..." Kael's hand wrapped around her throat, lifted her off her feet, slammed her against the stone wall hard enough to crack mortar. "Where is she?" Lyssa's eyes went wide, confused, terrified. "Your Majesty, I don't..." "The prisoner, Arya Vale. Someone took her from the keep while we were distracted. Someone who knew exactly when to strike. Someone who had access to our defensive plans, our guard rotations, our fucking everything." He squeezed. "Not enough to kill. Enough to hurt. And I'm betting that someone is you." "No," Lyssa gasped, clawing at his hand. "Your Majesty, please, I would never..." "Liar!" Kael threw her across the room. She hit the tactical table, scattering maps and markers. Commanders scrambled back, hands on weapons, uncertain whether to intervene. Lyssa coughed, struggling to her knees. Blood trickled from her split lip. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't you?" Kael stalked toward her, predator closing on wounded prey. "You've been feeding Soren information for years. The Knoll told me. I've been watching you, waiting for you to slip, and tonight you finally did." Understanding dawned in Lyssa's eyes, followed immediately by something worse. Resignation. She stopped struggling, stood slowly. met Kael's gaze with the kind of calm that came from being caught and knowing it. "All right," she said quietly. "You want the truth? Fine." The room went deathly still. "I've been with the Covenant for 3 years. Since you ignored my warnings about the Southern Territories, let those villages burn because reinforcing them didn't serve your strategic objectives." Her voice was steady, matter of fact. "You want to know why I turned? Because you're exactly what Soren says you are, a tyrant who values control over lives." Kael's hands clenched into fists. "I saved this kingdom. You saved your throne. There's a difference. Watch yourself." "Or what? You'll kill me? I'm dead anyway. Might as well die honest." Lissa straightened, blood on her teeth turning her smile feral. "But here's the thing, Kael. I didn't take your precious null." That stopped him. "Bullshit. I'm serious. I reported on troop movements, defense structures, command hierarchies. That was my assignment. Extraction wasn't my operation." She laughed, sharp and bitter. "You think Soren trusts his agents enough to tell them the full plan? We're compartmentalized. I know my piece, nothing more." Kael studied her, looking for the lie. Found only truth. "Then who?" he demanded. "I don't know, but if I had to guess..." Lisa's eyes glittered. "I'd look closer to home. Someone with direct access to the prisoner. Someone she might actually trust enough to follow willingly." The implication hit like a blade. "No. Impossible. You're trying to divide us. I'm trying to make you think. When was the last time you questioned the people closest to you? When was the last time you considered that loyalty might be a lie?" Kael grabbed her again, this time by the collar, lifting until her toes barely touched ground. "Who took her?" "I don't know." Each word forced out through gritted teeth. "But I know this. Soren's already won, whether you find her or not. Because he's done what he came to do. He's proven you can't protect what you claim to own. And every wolf who sees that will question whether serving you is worth the cost." Kael wanted to break her, wanted to rip the information from her throat with his bare hands. But beneath the rage, cold logic whispered, "She's telling the truth. She doesn't know." He dropped her. "Lock her up," he told the nearest guards. "Maximum security. If she escapes, everyone in the chain of command dies." They dragged Lissa away. She didn't fight, just smiled that knowing, vicious smile. Kael stood in the wreckage of his war room, surrounded by commanders who wouldn't meet his eyes, and felt control slipping through his fingers like smoke. Somewhere in this palace, someone he trusted had betrayed him. And until he knew who, everyone was suspect. Arya woke to darkness. Not the simple darkness of a cell. The absolute darkness of a space without light, without air circulation, without any reference point to establish where walls ended and void began. Her head throbbed. Chemicals. Someone had drugged her. Fast-acting, professional. She'd barely registered the cloth over her face before consciousness fled. Now she was somewhere. She tested her limbs, chained, wrists behind her back, ankles locked together. Heavy iron, familiar weight. Different shackles than Kael had used, older, rougher, fitted specifically to suppress wolf strength. Covenant issue. "Fuck," she whispered, finally awake. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Male, calm, cultured. Arya's blood went cold. "Soren." "Hello, Arya." "It's been too long." Light flared, sudden, blinding. She squeezed her eyes shut, giving them time to adjust. When she opened them again, she wished she hadn't. She was in a cell. Stone walls, iron door, but larger than Kael's dungeon, more permanent, like a space designed for long-term occupancy. And standing just outside the bars, watching her with the patient interest of a scientist observing a specimen, Soren. He looked exactly as she remembered. Tall, lean, silver hair pulled back in a neat queue. Face that could have been anywhere from 50 to 500. Ageless in the way of ancient alphas who'd learned to slow time itself through sheer force of will. He wore simple clothes. No armor. No weapons. Didn't need them. His presence alone was weapon enough. "You've led us quite the chase," Soren said conversationally. 2 weeks, 7 territories. That incident with the river pack was particularly creative. I assume you learned that trick from Marcus? He always did favor water tactics. Arya said nothing, conserving energy, looking for weaknesses, found none. Not speaking? That's fine. We have time. Soren pulled up a chair. Where it came from, Arya couldn't see, and sat with the casual ease of someone completely in control. Though I must admit I'm curious about your new friend. The Alpha King, K.L. Draven. Quite the reputation. Go to hell. There she is, Soren smiled. I was worried the drugs had damaged that fire. Tell me, what was your plan? Seduce him? Make him think you were valuable enough to protect? Use his resources to run even farther? Something like that. Clever. Almost worked. But you made one critical error. What's that? You assumed he'd care. Soren leaned forward, elbows on knees. But alphas don't care, Arya. They possess. They dominate. They use. And when something stops being useful, they discard it. Kyle might have kept you alive for tactical advantage, but love? Protection? The moment keeping you endangered his kingdom more than it served him, you'd be dead, or worse, traded. You don't know him. Don't I? I've studied K.L. Draven for 5 years, read every report, analyzed every decision. He's predictable, ruthless, efficient, everything an Alpha King should be. Soren's expression turned almost pitying. You thought he was different, better than me. But we're the same, he and I. We just dress up our tyranny in different rhetoric. Arya wanted to argue, wanted to throw his words back at him, couldn't, because part of her, the part that had spent 8 years watching Soren manipulate wolves with surgical precision, wondered if he was right. Kyle had promised freedom, but he'd also promised to use her, had screened his own troops with her abilities, turned her into exactly what Soren had made her, a tool. I see understanding dawning, Soren observed. Good. That's the first step toward acceptance. Acceptance of what? Of your purpose. You're null, Arya, last of your kind. Do you understand what that means? You're not just immune to Alpha Command. You're evidence that the entire hierarchy is a lie. That power is an absolute. That wolves can exist outside pack structure and survive. And you want to use that. I want to free that. Soren stood, began pacing, a lecturer warming to his subject. The Alpha system is a prison. It forces wolves into rigid hierarchies, denies them choice, breaks them into submission from birth. But you prove it doesn't have to be that way. With you as the foundation, I can build something new. A society where strength is earned, not inherited, where loyalty is chosen, not commanded. By torturing wolves into compliance? By showing them the truth. Yes, some resist, yes, some need convincing, but in the end, they're free, truly free. Free from alpha dominance, free from pack bonds, free to choose their own path. Arya laughed, sharp, bitter. You're insane. Am I? Or am I the only one willing to break the chains everyone else accepts as natural? Soren stopped pacing, looked at her with something approaching genuine emotion. I didn't want to hurt you, Arya. Your mother, I tried to recruit her peacefully, offered her safety, resources, protection for you both. She refused, called me a monster, and when she tried to run, you killed her. I eliminated a threat. There's a difference. Not to me. No, I suppose not. Soren's expression hardened, which brings us to the present situation. You escaped, embarrassed me, cost me resources tracking you down. Under normal circumstances, I'd make an example, but you're too valuable to waste on revenge. So what happens now? Now you choose. Work with me willingly. Help build the new order. Use your abilities to free wolves from alpha tyranny, or resist, and I make you work through less pleasant means. You mean torture. I mean conditioning. Breaking down your resistance until compliance becomes easier than rebellion. It's remarkably effective. Took about 6 months with you the first time, if I recall correctly. Arya's stomach turned, because she remembered the isolation, the pain, the systematic destruction of her will, until serving Soren seemed like the only way to make it stop. She'd been 12. I won't do it again, she said. You will. Everyone breaks eventually. It's just a matter of time and pressure. Soren moved toward the door. I'm giving you 1 week, 7 days to consider your options. At the end, we'll talk again. And you'll tell me whether you choose the easy path or the hard one. Where are we? Somewhere your Alpha King will never find you. Somewhere even his considerable resources can't reach. Soren paused at the threshold. One more thing. The rescue attempt, the timing, the inside assistance. Arya went very still. That was Dane, Soren said. Kyle's beta, his most trusted advisor. Been with the Covenant for 8 years. Longer than you, actually. He's the one who unlocked your cell, who killed the guards, who carried you out while the battle raged. No. Impossible. You're lying. Am I? Think about it. Who had access to everything? Who knew the guard rotations, the defensive plans, the screening results? Who was positioned perfectly to report everything directly to me? Soren's smile was knife-thin. Dane didn't just betray Kyle. He orchestrated the entire attack, the timing, the sabotage, all of it, and your precious Alpha King never suspected a thing. The door closed, locks engaged. Arya sat in the darkness, mind reeling. Dane, Kyle's beta, his brother in everything but blood, traitor. And if Soren was telling the truth, if Dane had been Covenant from the start, then everything was compromised. Every plan, every strategy, every moment Kyle thought he was ahead, he'd been dancing exactly where Soren wanted. The screening, the identification of spies, all of it fed to Soren through Dane, which meant Kyle was walking into a trap, and there was nothing she could do to warn him. Kale found Dane in the North Tower, standing at the window where Arya used to sit, staring out at the battle raging in the streets below. The Covenant forces had pulled back after the initial assault, not retreating, but consolidating, holding position, waiting for something. We've lost 200 wolves, Dane said without turning. Maybe more. The saboteurs knew exactly where to strike. I know. Lyssa? Locked up. She confirmed she was Covenant, but she didn't orchestrate the extraction. Then who? Kyle moved closer, studying his beta, looking for signs, cracks, anything that would confirm the suspicion growing in his gut. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Someone with complete access. Someone I trusted absolutely. He paused. Someone who's been with me from the beginning. Dane turned. His expression was open, concerned, everything it should be. You think it's me? Not a question. A statement. Kyle's hand drifted toward his sword. Should I? Honestly, yes. If I were you, I'd suspect everyone. Trust is a luxury in war. Dane's eyes were steady, clear. But for what it's worth, it wasn't me. Prove it. How? I can't prove a negative, can't prove I didn't do something. Dane spread his hands. All I can offer is my word, and I know that's not enough right now. Kale wanted to believe him. God, he wanted to believe him. But Lyssa had been loyal for years before she turned. Kellen had been genuine until leverage made him betray. Who was to say Dane was any different? Where were you when Arya was taken? Kyle asked. Coordinating the defense at the East Corridor. You sent me there yourself. Did I? Or did you volunteer? Put yourself exactly where you needed to be to have an alibi? Dane's jaw tightened. You're serious? 3 guards dead, prisoner gone? Battle timed perfectly to provide distraction. Someone orchestrated this, Dane. Someone who knew every detail of our defense. So you assume it's me because I'm capable of it? I assume it's you because eliminating you solves the problem. If you're compromised, killing you stops the leak. If you're not... Kale shrugged, the gesture cold. Then I've lost a loyal beta, but gained certainty. Either way, I win. Silence. Heavy, suffocating. Dane stared at him like he'd never seen him before. That's your calculus? He asked quietly. Kill the maybe traitor to be safe? That's being alpha. That's being paranoid. Paranoia keeps you alive! Kale's control snapped. In case you haven't noticed, we're losing. The kingdom is burning. Half my command is compromised. The one weapon I had against Soren is gone. And I'm standing here trying to figure out if my oldest friend just stabbed me in the fucking back. The words echoed off stone walls. Dane absorbed them, nodded slowly. All right, he said. You want certainty? Fine. Kill me. Kale's hand froze on his sword hilt. What? Kill me. Right now. If that's what it takes for you to trust the rest of your command, do it. Dane stepped forward, offering his throat. Complete submission, ultimate vulnerability. I won't fight, won't resist. I'll die knowing I served my alpha to the end. It was the perfect play. Either genuine loyalty or manipulation so subtle Kale couldn't detect it. And he hated that he couldn't tell which. "Step back," he said. "No." "Dane!" "No. You don't get to make that threat and then back down. Either you trust me or you don't. Either I'm your beta or I'm a dead traitor. Choose." Kale's sword cleared the sheath. Dane didn't move, just stood there, throat exposed, eyes locked on Kael's with absolute certainty. "Trust me," those eyes said, "or kill me. But decide." Kale held the blade between them, felt its weight, felt the weight of the choice. Kill a possibly innocent wolf to eliminate risk, or spare a possibly guilty one and remain vulnerable. No good options, just the brutal mathematics of survival. He lowered the sword. "Get out of my sight," he said quietly. Dane's expression flickered. Relief? Disappointment? Kale couldn't tell. "Your Majesty." "Yiki. I said get out. You're confined to quarters until this is resolved. No command authority, no access to sensitive information. You're alive because I can't afford to be wrong, but you're not trusted." Dane stood very still, then nodded once. Sharp. Military. "As you command, Alpha." He left. Kyle stood alone in the tower, sword still in hand, and felt the foundations of everything he'd built crack. Trust, loyalty. The bonds that held packs together, all of it unraveling. Because Soren hadn't just attacked his kingdom, he'd attacked his certainty, and that was a wound no sword could heal. The week passed in nightmare increments. Kael held the capital, barely. The Covenant forces maintained siege positions but didn't attack again. Just waited. Watching. Applying pressure without committing to full assault. Psychological warfare, breaking will before breaking walls. It was working. Wolves deserted. Not many, a handful here, a pair there, but enough to notice. Enough to spread doubt through the ranks like infection. Kael executed the obvious traitors. 23 wolves in 7 days, each one confirmed Covenant through evidence, testimony, or confession under pressure. Each execution felt like cutting away pieces of his own flesh. On the 8th day, Soren sent another messenger. Same young female wolf, same white banner, different message. This one was an invitation. Alpha Soren requests the honor of Alpha Kael's presence at dawn tomorrow. Neutral ground, just the two of them, to discuss terms. "Terms of what?" Kael asked. "Surrender," the messenger said. "Yours or his." He said you'd understand. She left. Kael stood in the courtyard, surrounded by what remained of his command, and understood perfectly. This was the endgame. Soren calling his bluff, forcing him to the table, making him choose between pride and pragmatism. Every strategic instinct screamed trap, but every political calculation said go anyway. Because refusing would look like fear, and fear would break the army faster than any siege. "I'm going," he announced. The commanders exploded in protest. "Your Majesty, it's suicide. He'll kill you. At minimum, take an escort." "No." Kael's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "He wants me alone. I'll go alone. If it's a trap, I die. If it's genuine negotiation, maybe we end this without burning the kingdom to ash." "And if he demands Arya as the price?" Dane asked from the back of the crowd. Still confined but present for strategic discussions because Kael needed every tactical mind available. "Then I negotiate something else." "What if there's nothing else? What if she's the only thing he wants?" Kael met Dane's eyes across the courtyard, saw the challenge there. The test. "Then I tell him to go to hell," Kael said, "and we finish this with blood." Truth or manipulation? Even Kael wasn't sure anymore. He just knew that he'd drawn a line, and crossing it would mean becoming everything Soren accused him of being. Boy! Dawn came cold. Kael rode out alone, no armor, no weapons except the sword at his hip. He'd considered going completely unarmed, but decided that was stupidity masquerading as trust. The neutral ground was a cleared field between the armies, half a mile of empty grass where, in peacetime, merchants set up markets and children played. Now it was a killing ground waiting to happen. Soren stood in the center, also alone, also armed only with a sword. The The two alphas approached on foot, closing the distance with measured steps. Kyle felt his wolf rise, recognizing threat, preparing for violence. He forced it down. Control. Always control. They stopped 10 feet apart. Kyle, Soren said pleasantly. Thank you for coming. Soren, Kale's voice was ice. Let's skip the pleasantries. You have something I want. I have something you want. Let's negotiate. Direct. I appreciate that. Soren clasped his hands behind his back, utterly relaxed. Though I'm curious what you think I want from you. Legitimacy. You've built power in the shadows, but that only goes so far. You want recognition, territory, a seat at the table with the other Alpha Kings. Interesting theory. Wrong, but interesting. Then what? I want you to understand. Soren's expression turned almost earnest. Understand that the system you've built, the hierarchy, the dominance, the submission, it's a cage, and you're as trapped in it as the wolves you rule. Kale laughed, short, sharp. You started a war for philosophy? I started a war to prove a point, that alpha power isn't absolute, that wolves can resist, that everything you believe about control is a carefully constructed lie that falls apart the moment someone refuses to submit. Like Arya. Like Arya, Soren agreed. The girl who couldn't kneel, who stood in your throne room and proved that your dominance has limits. That scared you, didn't it? Realizing you couldn't break her? What scared me was realizing people like you exist. People who'd burn the world to prove they're right. I'm not burning the world. I'm freeing it. Soren took a step forward. Give me Arya. Oh wait, you can't, because I already have her. So let me rephrase. Acknowledge that your power is limited. Step down. Let the wolves choose their own path. And I'll let you live. That's your offer? Abdicate? That's my offer. And if I refuse, then I break you. Slowly, systematically. I've already started. Your command structure is compromised. Your wolves are deserting. Your beta is... Soren smiled. Well, let's just say trust is a precious commodity you can't afford to spend. Kale's hand tightened on his sword hilt. You're bluffing. Am I? Test it. Go back to your palace. Ask Dane where he was the night Arya disappeared. Ask him whose orders he really follows. Ask him how long he's been mine. The words landed like physical blows. Liar. Liar? Or just better at this game than you? Soren shrugged. It doesn't matter. Truth or lie, the doubt is already there. You'll never trust him again. And an alpha who can't trust his beta is an alpha who's already lost. I could kill you right now. You could try, but we both know you won't. Because that's not who you are. You're the alpha who values control over chaos, who'd rather negotiate than risk everything on a single strike. Soren's eyes glittered. That's your weakness, KL. You think being measured makes you strong, but it just makes you predictable. He was right. God damn him, he was right. Kyle had spent 10 years being the rational alpha, the one who calculated costs, minimized losses, chose strategy over emotion, and Soren had used that against him at every turn. I want to see her, Kyle said. Who? Arya? Soren looked genuinely surprised. Why? Because I don't believe you have her. I think this is a bluff to make me surrender something I can still use. She's not a weapon. She's a person, said the man who tortured her for 8 years. I taught her purpose. There's a difference. Show me, Kale demanded. Show me you have her, or this conversation ends. Soren considered, then nodded. He gestured to the tree line. 2 wolves emerged, dragging a third between them. Arya, chained, bloodied, barely conscious, but alive. Kale's wolf roared, every instinct screamed to attack, to rescue, to tear apart anyone who'd hurt her. He forced himself still. Satisfied? Soren asked. Let her go. Why would I do that? Because she's not part of this. This is between you and me. Everything is part of this. She's the proof, Kyle. The living evidence that your power has limits. Soren moved closer to Arya, tilted her chin up. She flinched. And when I'm done, she'll be the foundation of something new, a world where gnolls aren't hunted, where resistance isn't crushed, where wolves are actually free. You're insane. I'm visionary. History will decide which. Arya's eyes opened, focused on Kael, and in them he saw something that stopped his breath. Not hope, not plea for rescue. Understanding. She knew what was coming, knew what choice Kyle would have to make, and she was telling him wordlessly, desperately, make the right one, even if it killed her. Last chance, Soren said. Step down. Acknowledge the lie. Let the system fall, and I'll let your wolves live, including her. And if I refuse, then I kill her, right here, right now, and you get to watch. Kale's sword was in his hand before he realized he'd drawn it. Soren smiled. There it is. The monster beneath the king. The violence you dress up as justice. He pulled his own blade. Come on then. Show me what alpha power really means when it's cornered. Kale knew it was a trap. Knew that attacking would prove everything Soren wanted to prove. That alphas solved problems with violence. That control was just another word for tyranny. But Arya was 20 feet away, bleeding, and every second he hesitated was another second she suffered. The mathematics of survival versus the cost of his soul. He'd made this calculation 1,000 times, but never when the price was staring back at him with green eyes that held more courage than any warrior he'd ever commanded. Choose, Soren said softly, your kingdom or the girl, your power or your conscience, the easy lie or the hard truth. And standing in that empty field with armies watching from both sides, Kyle Draven, Alpha King, ruler of the realm, master of dominance and control, realized something that shattered every certainty he'd ever held. He couldn't do this alone, couldn't win through strength, couldn't save everyone by sacrificing pieces of himself until nothing remained but duty and the throne. The revelation hit like a breaking dam, and in its wake, a terrible clarity. He lowered his sword. No, he said. Soren's smile widened. No? No? Kale's voice was steady, final. I won't fight you, won't play your game, won't prove that alphas are monsters by becoming one. Then you've lost. Maybe, but I'm done choosing between poison options and calling it strategy. Kyle looked at Arya, held her gaze. You were right. About all of it. Power isn't control. It's the choice to walk away when every instinct screams to dominate. He turned his back on Soren, started walking toward his own lines. If you leave, Soren called out, I kill her. Kale stopped, didn't turn. Then you prove you're exactly what I always thought you were. A tyrant who uses freedom as a leash. He kept walking. Behind him, he heard Soren's breath hiss out, heard the scrape of steel, heard Arya scream, Wait! Not Arya, Soren. Kale stopped, turned. Soren stood frozen, blade half raised, expression twisted with something Kale had never seen before. Confusion. Why? Soren demanded. Why walk away? She means something to you, I can see it. Why not fight? Because fighting you is fighting myself. And I'm done with that war. Truth, raw and honest and completely defenseless. Soren stared at him like he'd just spoken a foreign language, then slowly, so slowly, lowered his blade. You're serious. I'm done. Done with what? With being the kind of alpha you need me to be to justify your crusade. Kale sheathed his sword. You want me to be a tyrant? I won't give you the satisfaction. You want a war? Fight it alone. I'm walking away, my kingdom, my throne, all of it. You're abdicating? I'm choosing. Kale's eyes found Arya again. Her, over everything. That's my choice. Silence. Absolute. Suffocating. Soren looked between Kyle and Arya, confusion shifting to something else. Something like, respect? Let her go, someone said. Kale turned. Dane stood at the edge of the field, sword drawn, not pointed at Soren, pointed at the two wolves holding Arya. Let her go, Dane repeated, or I gut you both. The wolves looked at Soren, waiting for orders. Soren studied Dane, then started laughing. Oh, this is perfect. This is... He couldn't finish, laughing too hard. What? Kyle demanded. Your beta, Soren managed. The one I claimed was mine. The one I said betrayed you. He wiped tears from his eyes. I lied. Dane was never Covenant. I just needed you to doubt him. Needed you to fracture your own command through paranoia. The revelation hit like a hammer. You played you? Completely. Soren's laughter faded to something colder. Made you suspect your most loyal wolf. Made you question the one person who'd never betray you. That was the real attack, Kael. Not the siege. The doubt. Kael felt the ground shift beneath him. Everything. All the suspicion, the screening, the paranoia. Manufactured by a man who understood that destroying trust was more effective than any army. Why tell me now? Kael asked. Because you just did something I didn't expect. Something I couldn't predict. Soren gestured at the space between them. You walked away. Chose the girl over power. That's not the alpha I studied. That's not the king I planned for. So what now? Soren considered, long enough that Kael's hand drifted back toward his sword. Then, now I'm curious if you mean it, if you'll actually walk away from everything you've built for a girl who can't even submit to you. I will. Then prove it. Soren nodded to his wolves. Let her go. They released Arya. She collapsed. Dane caught her, half carrying her toward Kael's side. Kael moved to help, but Soren's voice stopped him. One condition. What? You walk away from the throne, tonight, publicly. Let your wolves see that even the Alpha King can choose something over power. Soren's expression turned sharp. Do that, and I'll pull back. Let your kingdom stand. No more war. And if I refuse, then we finish this. Right now. All of us. And whoever's left standing writes the history. The ultimatum hung between them. Kael looked at Arya, barely conscious, bleeding, but alive. Looked at Dane, loyal despite being doubted, solid despite being tested. Looked at his kingdom, burning, fracturing, held together by threads, and made the only choice that felt true. I'll do it, he said. Tonight, I'll step down. Soren nodded slowly. Then we have an accord. He turned to leave, paused. For what it's worth, Kael, you might have been a better king than I gave you credit for. Because real power isn't the ability to dominate. He glanced back. It's the ability to walk away when dominance is all you have left. He disappeared into the trees. His army pulled back. And Kael stood in the empty field, Arya collapsing against him, Dane steady at his shoulder, and felt everything he'd been, everything he'd fought to build, crack open like an egg. But underneath the loss, underneath the sacrifice, freedom, terrible and exhilarating and completely unknown. Did you mean it? Arya whispered against his chest. About walking away? Kael looked down at her, at the girl who couldn't kneel, who'd shown him that some things mattered more than control. Yes, he said, and felt the weight of 10 years slide off his shoulders like chains. Finally, the throne room had never felt so empty. Kael stood before what remained of his kingdom, 200 wolves, maybe less, crowded into a space designed for 1,000. The chandeliers hung crooked, half their crystals shattered during the siege. Scorch marks blackened the walls where fire had caught and been barely contained. Blood still stained the marble in patterns that told stories of the traitors they'd executed, the enemies they'd killed, the wolves who'd died defending these walls. This was victory. It felt like defeat. Arya sat on the steps leading to the throne, chains finally removed, fresh bandages wrapping wrists rubbed raw by iron. She looked small against the massive black stone seat behind her, but her eyes, those sharp green eyes, tracked every movement in the room with the precision of someone who'd learned to read danger in the smallest shifts of posture. Dane stood at Kael's right shoulder, exactly where he'd stood for 10 years. His presence was solid, unshakable, the anchor Kael had relied on through every impossible decision. But even Dane looked uncertain now. The assembled wolves waited in tense silence. No one spoke. No one moved. They just watched their alpha with expressions that ranged from confusion to fear to something that looked dangerously close to betrayal. They knew something was coming. They could feel it in the air, thick and heavy as storm clouds. Kael took a breath. Let it out slowly. Soren's forces have pulled back, he said. His voice carried through the vast chamber, strong despite the exhaustion eating him from the inside. The siege is broken. The immediate threat is over. By every measure, we've won. Silence greeted the announcement. No cheers, no celebration. They knew him too well to believe that was the whole story. But there's a price for that victory. Kael's hands flexed at his sides, old nervous habit from before he'd learned to lock down every tell. Soren made demands, terms for his withdrawal, and I've agreed to them. The room shifted. Wolves leaning forward, tension coiling tighter. What terms? Beta Marcus asked from the front row. His face was bandaged from a dozen wounds, voice rough from smoke inhalation, but his eyes were sharp, alert. My abdication. He wants me to step down, walk away from the throne, publicly renounce my claim to the kingdom. Kael watched their faces as understanding hit, watched shock ripple through the crowd like a shockwave. And I've agreed. At sundown tonight, I announce my resignation. You choose a new alpha. The kingdom continues without me. The explosion was immediate. Wolves surged forward, voices crashing over each other in a cacophony of denial and rage and desperate protest. Your Majesty, no. We can still fight. You can't just abandon us. He's bluffing. We call his bluff. Soren will attack anyway. Enough. The word cracked through the chaos like a whip. Not an alpha command. Kael deliberately kept that leash on his power, but the force of 10 years ruling in his voice. The wolves fell silent, but their eyes burned with questions, with anger, with fear. Kael waited until he could hear breathing again, until the silence was complete. I'm not asking for your opinion, he said quietly. I'm not requesting permission. I'm telling you what's already decided, what's already set in motion. In 6 hours, I step down. That's final. Why? The question came from a young female wolf near the back. Her voice shook. Why would you do this? After everything we've fought for? After all the wolves who died defending this kingdom? Because more wolves will die if I don't. Kael met her eyes. Soren didn't pull back out of mercy. He pulled back because he got what he wanted, proof that I'd choose pragmatism over pride, that I'd sacrifice the crown to save lives. And he's right. I will. That's not weakness, Dane said. It's smart, someone interrupted. A scarred older wolf Kael recognized as Commander Reese. Tactically sound, but it's also giving Soren exactly what he wants. The moment you step down, this kingdom fragments. Every rival alpha within 100 miles will see vulnerability. They'll attack. And without you, he stopped. The unspoken ending hung heavy. Without you, we fall. Then you get stronger, Kael said. You adapt. You choose an alpha who can defend what I couldn't. There is no alpha stronger than you. Marcus's voice was flat. Certain. I've served under 4 alphas in my life, Your Majesty. You're the only one I'd die for, the only one who's held this fractured kingdom together through sheer force of will. You step down, we don't just lose a king. We lose the only thing keeping us from tearing ourselves apart. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Kael felt the weight of their belief pressing down on him, felt the expectation, the need, the desperate hope that their alpha could save them one more time. It made him want to scream. You think I don't know that? The words came out harsher than intended. You think I don't understand what this costs? I've spent 10 years building this kingdom, 10 years fighting and bleeding and making decisions that kept me awake at night because there were no good options, just gradations of terrible. I know what I'm giving up. Then why do it? Marcus demanded. Kael looked at Arya, at the girl who couldn't kneel, who'd shown him that submission wasn't the only path to strength. That power without choice was just another word for slavery. Because I'm tired, he said simply. Tired of being the monster everyone needs. Tired of choosing between bad and worse and calling it leadership. Tired of watching wolves die for decisions I made in rooms they'll never enter. His voice dropped. Tired of carrying the weight of an entire kingdom on my back and knowing that no matter how strong I am, eventually I'll break under it. The admission fell into silence. No one knew what to say to an alpha who'd just confessed weakness. Arya stood. The movement drew every eye, wolves shifting uncomfortably at the sight of the null who'd brought chaos crashing into their ordered world. He's doing this because I asked him to, she said. The room erupted again. Angry shouts, accusations, wolves pushing forward with aggression clear in their body language. You have no right. This is your fault. Outsider. Covenant spy. I said enough. This time Kael did use the alpha command. Just a touch of it. Just enough to cut through the noise and force them to listen. The wolves went rigid, submission hammering down on them whether they wanted it or not. He hated doing it, hated the way their eyes went blank, the way their wills bent to his without choice. But some truths required a captive audience. She's right, Kael said into the forced silence. I'm doing this because she asked. Because she's the first person in 10 years who looked at me and saw something other than a throne, who asked what I wanted instead of what I could provide. He paused. And when I couldn't answer that question, when I realized I'd spent so long being Alpha King that I'd forgotten who Kael was underneath, I knew something had to change. He released the command, felt the pressure lift, watched the wolves sag as their will returned. I'm not abandoning you, he continued. I'm setting you free. Free from a king who's one bad decision away from becoming the tyrant Soren claims I already am. Free from a hierarchy so rigid that wolves would rather join our enemies than keep submitting. Free to choose your own path forward instead of following mine. Pretty speech? A voice called from the middle of the crowd. But it doesn't change reality. You step down, Soren wins. He gets to claim he broke the unbreakable Alpha King, gets to use your abdication as proof that the whole system is failing, and then he swoops in with his covenant and offers an alternative that's just another kind of cage. Maybe, Kael acknowledged, but that's your problem to solve, not mine. I've made my choice. What if we refuse? Marcus asked. What if we don't accept your abdication? What if we keep you as Alpha, whether you want it or not? Then you prove Soren right, that Alpha power is based on force, not consent, that wolves can be commanded against their will and made to obey. Kael's voice hardened. And I'll fight you, every single one of you, because I'm done being what you need me to be. The threat hung in the air. Dane spoke quietly. Your Majesty, if you truly step down tonight, what happens to you? Where do you go? Kael looked at Arya, at the Null who'd turned his certainty into questions, his dominance into doubt, his power into something he didn't have words for yet. I leave. Take Arya somewhere safe, somewhere Soren can't reach. Try to figure out who I am when I'm not ruling anyone. He'll come after you anyway, Dane said. You know that. You're too valuable a symbol, too dangerous loose. He won't stop until you're dead or back under his control. Probably, but that's tomorrow's problem. And us? Your pack? The wolves who've served you faithfully for years? Dane's voice carried an edge Kael had rarely heard. We're just tomorrow's problem too? The accusation stung because it was true. I'm not the Alpha you need anymore, Kael said. I'm barely holding myself together. Another month? Another crisis? And I'll make a decision that gets hundreds of you killed because I'm too exhausted to see the better option. You deserve better than a king who's running on fumes and pride. You think any Alpha who replaces you will be less tired, less burdened? Marcus shook his head. That's the job, Your Majesty. It's supposed to be hard. It's supposed to break you down. And you push through anyway because wolves depend on you. For how long? Until I finally snap and become the monster? Until I make one decision too many based on paranoia instead of strategy? Until I execute a loyal wolf because I can't tell the difference between traitor and faithful anymore? Kael's voice rose. I've been standing on that edge for months, walking that line between strong leadership and tyranny, and I'm one bad day away from crossing it permanently. So yes, Marcus, I'm stepping down before I become the thing we're all fighting against. Silence. Heavy. Oppressive. Then a young wolf spoke up, barely past his first shift, eyes wide with the kind of idealism that hadn't been beaten out of him yet. What if you're wrong? He asked. What if stepping down isn't the noble sacrifice you think it is? What if it's just running away? Kael could have crushed him with a look, with a word, with the full weight of Alpha disapproval that would make the kid piss himself and apologize. Instead, he smiled, sad and genuine. You might be right, he admitted. I might be running. I might regret this tomorrow, next week, next year. But I'd rather risk being wrong about this than risk becoming what Soren says I am, a tyrant who holds power through force and calls it protection. The young wolf absorbed that, nodded slowly. Then I hope you find what you're looking for, Your Majesty, whatever that is. Thank you. Kael looked around the room one last time. At faces he'd known for years, wolves he'd fought beside, bled with, mourned over. His pack, his kingdom, his past. I'll make the formal announcement at sundown, he said. Use the time to prepare, to grieve, to start thinking about who leads next. And when I'm gone, his voice caught, he forced it steady. When I'm gone, remember that I didn't leave because I stopped caring. I left because I cared too much to keep making the decisions that ruling requires. He turned and walked away. Behind him, the crowd erupted again. Arguments, protests, wolves calling his name. He didn't look back. Couldn't. Because if he did, if he saw their faces, the fear and betrayal and desperate hope that maybe he'd change his mind, he'd stay, and staying would destroy him. Arya caught up to him in the corridor outside, Dane right behind her. That was brutal, she said. It was honest. Same thing, usually. She matched his pace as they climbed the stairs toward the royal chambers. You okay? No, but I will be. They walked in silence until they reached his rooms. Chaol pushed through the heavy doors into the space that had been his sanctuary for a decade. It felt like a stranger's home. Arya moved to the window, looking out at the city below. Smoke still rose from a dozen fires, damage from the siege that would take months to repair. The physical scars of a war they'd barely survived. Dane closed the door, leaned against it. So, he said conversationally, we doing this? Really doing this? Yes. You understand what happens next. Soren won't stop. He'll send hunters, assassins, everything he has to either kill you or bring you back as a trophy. You'll be running for the rest of your life. I know. And you're okay with that? Chaol looked at Arya, at the girl who'd been running for 8 years, who knew exactly what that life cost, who'd chosen it anyway over the alternative. I'm okay with trying, he said. Dane absorbed that, then nodded. All right, then we need a plan. Can't just walk out the front gate and hope for the best. We? You think I'm staying here without you? After 10 years? Fuck that. Dane's smile was sharp. You're stuck with me, Your Majesty. Or just Chaol, I guess, since you won't be Majesty anymore. That's going to take some getting used to. Despite everything, Chaol laughed. Short and surprised, but genuine. You're insane. I'm loyal. There's a difference. Not much of one in this case. They spent the next hour planning. Routes out of the city. Places to hide in the wilderness beyond pack territories. Supplies they'd need. Allies they could trust. A depressingly short list. The sun tracked across the sky, afternoon bleeding toward evening. Finally, Dane stood. I'm going to gather supplies. Check on escape routes. Make sure we can actually get out of here when the time comes. He paused at the door. For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. Doesn't make it easier, but it's right. Thanks. Dane left. Chaol sank into a chair, suddenly exhausted beyond measure. The adrenaline that had carried him through the confrontation was wearing off, leaving nothing but bone-deep fatigue. Arya settled on the armrest beside him. Her hand found his hair, fingers running through it gently. You sure about this? She asked quietly. No, but I'm doing it anyway. That's either very brave or very stupid. Both, probably. They're usually the same thing. He leaned into her touch, eyes closing. Tell me I'm not being selfish. Tell me I'm not abandoning wolves who need me just because I'm tired. I can't tell you that, because it might be true. Her fingers kept moving, soothing. But I can tell you that staying when you're this broken would hurt them worse than leaving. A shattered alpha makes shattered decisions. And shattered decisions get wolves killed. You sound very certain. I watched Soren break himself trying to control everything. Watched him make worse and worse choices because he couldn't admit he was past his limits. By the time I escaped, he was more monster than wolf. She paused. You're not there yet, but you're closer than you want to admit, and at least you're self-aware enough to see it and step back. Chaol opened his eyes, looked up at her. What if I can't figure out who I am without the crown? What if there's nothing underneath? Then we build something new, from scratch, together. Arya's smile was soft. But I don't think that's what happens. I think you've been Chaol all along. You just forgot because being Alpha King was louder. You have a lot of faith in someone you've known 2 weeks. I have faith in the wolf who chose to protect me, even when it endangered everything he'd built. Who walked away from absolute power because it was the right thing to do. Who's terrified right now but doing it anyway. She leaned down, kissed his forehead. That's not an Alpha King. That's just a good man trying his best, and that's enough. The words settled something in Kael's chest. Not certainty, but something close to peace. They sat in comfortable silence as the sun sank lower, painting the room in shades of gold and amber. An hour before sunset, Dane returned. His expression was wrong, not worried, not scared, grim, like he'd just received news that changed everything. "We have a problem," he said. Kael sat up. "What kind of problem?" "The kind where Soren never actually left. The kind where his withdrawal was a feint to make us lower our guard. The kind where there are 300 Covenant wolves hiding in the city, waiting for the signal to attack." Ice flooded Kael's veins. "How do you know?" "Caught one of his scouts. Made them talk." Dane's jaw tightened. "The abdication announcement? Soren's counting on it. Wants you in the throne room surrounded by your pack, all in one place. Then his forces hit. Fast, brutal, overwhelming. Kill anyone who resists, take you and Arya alive. Everyone else's acceptable losses." "When?" "Sundown, right when you were planning to make the announcement." Kael's mind raced. "The scout? You're sure they were telling the truth?" "I'm sure. They knew too many details to be lying. Guard rotations, defensive positions, the exact timing of when you'd be most vulnerable." Dane's expression darkened. "We've got another traitor in the command structure, someone feeding Soren real-time intelligence." Kael wanted to break something, wanted to scream, wanted to let his wolf out and tear apart anyone who'd betrayed them. Instead, he forced himself calm, forced himself to think. "Options," he said. "Run. Right now. Forget the announcement, forget protocol, just get you and Arya out of the city before the attack comes. And leave 200 wolves to die when Soren realizes I'm gone and hits them anyway out of spite? Better 200 die than the entire kingdom falls because he captures you." "No." The word came out absolute. Final. "I'm not sacrificing my pack to save myself, not now, not ever." "Then what?" Dane demanded. "We can't fight 300 Covenant wolves with what we have. We're barely at half strength from the siege. Another battle right now, we lose. Badly." Arya spoke up. "What if we don't fight?" Both wolves turned to look at her. "What if we give Soren exactly what he wants?" she continued. "The announcement, the abdication. Kael and me vulnerable and exposed, but we do it on our terms. Set the trap, let him spring it, and then turn it against him." "That's insane," Dane said. "It's the only option that doesn't end with everyone dead." Arya stood, moving to the map on Kael's desk. "Soren expects Kael to announce his abdication in the throne room, expects the pack to be demoralized, disorganized, reeling from losing their alpha. He'll hit fast, counting on shock and chaos to carry the attack." "Which is exactly what will happen," Dane pointed out, "unless we're ready for it. Unless we warn the pack ahead of time. Position fighters in the right places. Make it look like we're following through with the abdication while actually preparing for the attack." Arya's finger traced positions on the map. "Soren's forces will be coming from multiple directions. Here, here, and here, based on what the scout told you. We put our strongest fighters on those approaches, hidden, waiting. The moment the attack starts, we collapse the trap." Kael studied the map, saw the strategy taking shape. "It could work. If we move fast. If we can position everyone without Soren's spy noticing." "Big ifs," Dane muttered. "You have a better idea?" "Several. They all involve you not being bait in a plan that requires perfect execution to not end with you dead. Welcome to my last act as Alpha King." Kael's smile was sharp, dangerous. "One more impossible decision, one more strategy that shouldn't work. Might as well go out the way I came in." Dane looked between them, saw the determination in Kael's eyes, the fierce certainty in Arya's expression. Sighed. "Fine. But I'm staying right beside you the entire time. And if this goes sideways, we're running. No heroic last stands. No sacrificing yourself for the kingdom. We get you out alive. Agreed?" "Agreed." They planned for 30 minutes. Fast, brutal, no room for error. Dane would spread the word to trusted wolves only. The ones they knew were clean, who'd been screened and verified. Position them in the throne room, in the corridors, at the choke points where Soren's forces would have to come through. Make it look like business as usual, like a king about to abdicate and a pack about to grieve. But underneath, wolves with steel spines and sharp blades waiting for the trap to spring. "This is going to get bloody," Dane warned as he headed for the door. It was always going to get bloody, Kyle said. At least this way we choose the battlefield. Dane left. Kale and Arya spent the remaining time arming themselves. Swords, knives, anything that could kill at close range. Kale wore light armor under his formal robes, enough to stop a blade, not enough to restrict movement. Arya refused armor entirely. I'm faster without it, and if someone gets close enough to cut me, armor won't save me anyway. You don't have to do this, Kyle said. You could leave now. Take a horse, ride hard, be miles away before— No. Arya, no. She met his eyes. I ran for 8 years. I'm done running. We do this together or not at all. He wanted to argue, wanted to order her to safety. Couldn't, because she'd never obey an order. And because somewhere deep down, he needed her beside him for this. Needed to know that whatever happened, he wouldn't face it alone. The sun touched the horizon. Time. They walked to the throne room together, hand in hand, two people about to step into a trap with their eyes wide open and hope as their only weapon. The assembled pack waited. 200 wolves, positioned exactly as Dane had arranged. Most looked appropriately somber, wolves preparing to lose their alpha. But Kyle saw the tells. The way certain wolves stood too ready, the hands that drifted toward weapons, the eyes that scanned exits and approaches instead of watching the throne. His fighters. Ready. Kale took his position in front of the throne. Arya stood beside him, not behind, equal. The statement was deliberate. You all know why we're here, Kale began. His voice carried through the vast chamber. I've made a decision that affects every wolf in this kingdom, and you deserve to hear it directly. He paused, scanned the crowd, saw movement in the shadows behind them, right on time. I'm stepping down. Effective immediately. I'm no longer your Alpha King. You're free to choose your own leader, to build your own future. The windows exploded inward. 30 Covenant wolves poured through in a coordinated strike. The doors burst open, another 50 flooding in from the corridors. The trap sprung exactly as expected, except Kyle's wolves were ready. The hidden fighters moved as one, cutting into the Covenant forces with brutal efficiency. Steel rang on steel. Wolves screamed. Blood sprayed across marble that had seen too much violence already. Kyle drew his sword. Beside him, Arya moved like water, blade finding throats with precision that spoke of 8 years learning to kill or die. The Covenant wolves realized too late they'd walked into a counter trap. Tried to retreat. Found exits blocked by Kyle's fighters, wolves who'd positioned themselves perfectly to turn the throne room into a killing box. In 90 seconds, it was over. 30 Covenant wolves dead or dying. The rest fled back through the windows, into the corridors, anywhere away from the slaughter. Kale stood in the center of the carnage, breathing hard, sword dripping red. Secure the perimeter, he ordered. I want every entrance locked down. Anyone still in Covenant colors, kill on sight. Wolves scattered to obey. Dane appeared, blood on his face but grinning. Told you it would work. You told me it was insane. Same thing. Dane's grin faded. But this was just the first wave. Soren's got 200 more wolves in the city. When they hear this attack failed, they'll hit harder, I know. Kale scanned the room, counting his forces. They'd lost maybe 15 in the initial assault. Not bad. Not sustainable if the attacks kept coming. How long can we hold? Against 200? Maybe an hour. Maybe less if they coordinate properly. Then we don't give them an hour. We take the fight to them. Kyle's mind shifted into combat mode. The familiar rush of tactics and strategy pushing aside exhaustion. Arya, can you sense them? The Covenant wolves hiding in the city? She closed her eyes, reaching for that null ability, the way she could read resistance to Alpha Command like a beacon. North Quarter, she said after a moment. Maybe 80 wolves. They're trying to hide it, but the dissonance, it's like static. I can feel them. That's where we hit. Fast, hard, before they regroup. Kyle raised his voice. Fighters to me. We're moving out. If you're wounded, stay here and hold the palace. Everyone else, we're ending this. Tonight. The wolves rallied with the desperate energy of pack animals who knew they were fighting for survival. They poured out of the throne room, a flood of steel and fury, and wolves who'd decided that if they were going to die tonight, they'd take as many enemies with them as possible. Kyle led from the front. Arya ran beside him, keeping pace despite human lungs, despite exhaustion, despite everything screaming at her to stop. Dane covered their flank, coordinating the fighters with hand signals and sharp commands. They hit the north quarter like a hammer. The Covenant wolves never saw it coming. Expected defense, got aggression, expected Kyle to hide behind his walls, got an alpha king who crashed into their position with murder in his eyes, and a sword that remembered how to kill. The battle was fast, brutal. No quarter asked or given. Kyle became what he'd always been underneath the crown. A warrior, a killer, a wolf who survived by being meaner and faster and more ruthless than anything that tried to end him. He cut through Covenant fighters with mechanical efficiency. Throat, heart, spine. The weak points every alpha learned before their first shift. Arya fought beside him, covering his blind spots with a precision that spoke of perfect trust. They moved as a unit. Predator pair, death in synchronized motion. The Covenant forces broke, scattered into the city, running for their lives, the carefully coordinated attack dissolving into panicked retreat. Kyle let them go. Didn't chase. Just stood in the street, surrounded by bodies, breathing hard, feeling the battle highs start to fade. "How many?" he asked. Dane did a quick count. "We took down maybe 60. Lost 20 of ours. The rest of Soren's forces scattered. They'll regroup eventually, but not tonight. Then we have time." "For what?" Kyle looked at Arya, at his beta, at the wolves who'd followed him into hell and come out the other side. To leave. Right now, before Soren commits his full strength, before we lose more wolves to a war that was never really about territory or power. He raised his voice so everyone could hear. "I meant what I said earlier. I'm stepping down. This was my last act as your alpha, protecting you one more time. Now you get to choose what comes next without me." "Your Majesty," someone started. "No." Kale's voice was gentle but absolute. "I'm done. You fought beautifully tonight, held the line when anyone else would have broken. You don't need me anymore. Maybe you never did." He started walking, away from the palace, away from the throne, away from 10 years of his life. Arya fell into step beside him. Dane hesitated for just a moment, then followed. Behind them, the pack watched their alpha leave. Some called his name, some wept. Some just stood in stunned silence, unable to process what they were witnessing. But nobody stopped him. Because somewhere deep in the pack bond they understood. Their king was breaking, and letting him go was the only mercy left. Kyle walked through the city gates as the moon rose, leaving behind everything he'd built, everyone who depended on him, the crown that had defined him for a decade. Walked into darkness with 2 wolves and hope as fragile as spider silk, and felt, for the first time in years, free. Terrifyingly, gloriously free. They ran for 3 days. Through forests so dense the canopy choked out sunlight, across rivers swollen with spring melt, over mountains that scraped the sky and left their lungs burning. Kyle, Arya, and Dane moved like ghosts through territory that belonged to no pack, where the old laws didn't reach and survival was the only rule that mattered. Behind them, Soren's hunters followed. Not close, not yet, but persistent. Leaving markers in their wake, carved symbols on trees, ashes from campfires still warm, the distant howls that said, "We're coming." On the 4th morning, they stopped at a clearing where water pooled clear and cold from an underground spring. Kale knelt at the edge, splashing his face, watching dirt and blood swirl away in the current. His reflection stared back, gaunt, hollow-eyed, someone he barely recognized without the crown weighing down his head. "We can't keep running," Dane said from where he sat sharpening his blade. The whetstone scraped rhythmic against steel. "They're gaining. Another 2 days, maybe 3. They'll catch us." "I know." Kale's voice was rough from days of silence, broken only by tactical necessity. "So what's the play?" "I'm working on it. Work faster." Arya emerged from the tree line, hands full of plants Kale didn't recognize. She settled beside the fire Dane had built, began sorting them with practiced efficiency. "Feverfew, willow bark, comfrey root," she murmured. "Should help with the pain." "What pain?" Kyle asked. She looked at him, just looked, and he understood. The pain of a kingdom left behind. The ache of wolves who'd depended on him, now leaderless. The phantom weight of a crown that no longer sat on his head, but still pressed down like memory, made physical. "Right," he said quietly. "That pain." Arya crushed the herbs between stones, mixed them with water from the spring. The paste smelled bitter, medicinal. She held it out. Kale took it, drank. It tasted like earth and regret. They sat in silence while the sun climbed higher, burning off morning mist. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled. Not one of Soren's. Wild pack. Free pack. The kind that existed before alphas carved the world into territories and hierarchies. "Tell me something," Arya said eventually. "If you could go back to that first day in the throne room when I refused to kneel, would you kill me, knowing what it would cost to keep me alive?" Kyle considered the question, really considered it. "No," he said finally. "I'd do it exactly the same. Every choice, every sacrifice. Because the alternative, never knowing there was something beyond control, beyond dominance, beyond the cage I'd built calling it a kingdom, that would be worse than any cost. Even losing everything? Especially losing everything. Because what I lost," he gestured vaguely back the way they'd come, "I was already losing, just slower. One decision at a time, one compromise at a time, until I'd have been nothing but the throne wearing a wolf's skin." Dane's whetstone stopped. "That's the most honest thing I've heard you say in 10 years. I'm out of practice at lying." "Good. Lying to yourself is how alphas go mad." Dane set the blade aside, met Kale's eyes. "So, real talk. What do we do when Soren catches us? Because he will catch us. Man's got resources we can't match, and a personal grudge that won't quit until one of you is dead. We fight. 3 against how many? 20? 50? He's not coming alone." "I know. So that's suicide." "Maybe, but it's our choice. That counts for something." Arya made a sound, half laugh, half sob. "You're both insane, you know that? Talking about fighting an army like it's just another tactical problem to solve." "What would you prefer?" Kale asked gently. "I'd prefer we lived. I'd prefer we didn't throw our lives away on pride and principle when we could just keep running. There's a whole world out here. We could disappear, change names, start over somewhere Soren would never think to look." "You tried that for 8 years. How'd it work out?" The question landed hard. Arya flinched. "That's different. I was alone, didn't have—" She stopped. "Didn't have what?" "Anyone I cared about losing." The admission hung between them like smoke. Kael reached out, found her hand, squeezed. "Then we give him something he doesn't expect," he said. "Not running, not fighting. Something else entirely." "Like what?" "I don't know yet, but I'm tired of playing games where Soren writes the rules. Time to change the board." They spent the day planning. Not strategy in the traditional sense. They had no army, no resources, no advantage except knowing the enemy was coming and choosing where to meet him. But they had something Soren didn't. They had nothing left to lose. That kind of freedom was its own kind of power. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of blood and gold, Dane stood watch while Kael and Arya sat by the dying fire. "Tell me about your mother," Kael said quietly. Arya looked surprised. "Why?" "Because I want to know. Want to understand where you came from, who taught you to be someone who can't be broken." She was quiet for a long time. Firelight danced across her face, throwing shadows that made her look ancient, young, both at once. "She was fierce," Arya said finally. "Not loud, not aggressive, but fierce the way bedrock is fierce, absolute, immovable. There long before you arrived and there long after you leave. She taught me that submission isn't the same as surrender, that you can bow without breaking, that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is refuse to be what they need you to be." Sounds like someone I wish I'd met. She'd have liked you or hated you, probably both. Arya's smile was sad. She had this thing she used to say. Power is just fear wearing a crown. Took me years to understand what she meant. And now? Now I think she was right. Every alpha I've met, Soren, you, the ones before, you all rule through making wolves afraid of what happens if they don't submit. The details change, the methods change, but the foundation is always fear. You think I ruled through fear? I think you tried not to. I think you wanted to be better. But yeah, at the core, your power came from wolves being more afraid of you than of whatever else was out there. She met his eyes. That's not a criticism. It's just truth. And truth doesn't care about intentions. Kale absorbed that, felt it settle in his chest alongside all the other truths he'd been avoiding. What happens, he asked, if we survive this? If by some miracle we beat Soren and actually make it out alive? We build something new, or we try to. Or we fail and die trying. Does it matter? Yes, because I need to know. He stopped, started again. I need to know if you're staying because you want to, or because you don't have anywhere else to go. Arya's hand found his face, turned him to look at her fully. I'm staying because for the first time in my life, I'm choosing instead of surviving. Because you're the first person who saw me as more than a weapon or a problem to solve. Because, her voice dropped. Because I love you, you stubborn, self-destructive, formerly royal bastard. And I'm not walking away from that. Not for Soren, not for safety, not for anything. The words hit like a physical force. Kale had heard declarations of loyalty before. Oaths, vows, wolves swearing they'd die for him. This was different. This was someone choosing him without command, without pack bond, without anything except the terrifying freedom of actual choice. I love you too, he said. The words felt strange in his mouth, foreign, like a language he'd studied but never spoken. I don't know what that looks like without dominance, without control, without being the alpha, but I want to learn. Then we learn together. She kissed him, soft at first, then desperate, then with the fierce hunger of two people who knew tomorrow might be their last day and wanted to taste something real before the end. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Dane's voice drifted from his watch position. If you two are done being disgustingly sweet, we've got company. Kale was on his feet instantly, sword in hand. Where? North, maybe half a mile out. I count 15, could be more behind them. Soren? Don't know yet, but they're tracking us. Moving deliberate, professional. Kael's mind shifted into combat mode. 15 was manageable. Maybe. If they picked the terrain right, used ambush tactics, got lucky, or it was suicide. Hard to tell the difference sometimes. We run or fight? Arya asked, already armed, already ready. Kael stopped, because crashing through the underbrush, emerging into the clearing with hands raised and empty, came a figure he recognized. Beta Marcus, bloodied, exhausted, alone. Kael's sword didn't waver. Give me one reason not to kill you where you stand. Marcus stopped, breathing hard. Because I'm not Covenant anymore. Because I helped you escape. Because I'm here to warn you that Soren's coming with everything he has, and if you don't listen to me, you'll all be dead by dawn. You expect me to trust you after I betrayed you? Yeah, I know what I did. Marcus's expression was hollow. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for 5 minutes to tell you what's coming. After that, you want to kill me? I won't fight it. Kael looked at Dane, at Arya. Both nodded minutely. Let him talk. 5 minutes, Kael said. Start talking. Marcus collapsed onto a fallen log, body language screaming exhaustion. Soren's lost his mind. When you escaped, when the attack on the throne room failed, something broke in him. He's not strategic anymore, not careful. He's just rage, pure rage. And he's coming for you with 200 wolves, not to capture, to kill. You, Arya, anyone who stands with you. He wants you erased. When? Dawn. Maybe sooner if his advanced scouts pick up your trail. 200. Dane's voice was flat. Against 3. Against more than 3 if you'll take help. Marcus looked up. I brought 15 wolves with me. Loyal ones, not Covenant. Wolves who served you, who believed in you, who decided they'd rather die with their real alpha than live under Soren's vision. 15 won't be enough. I know, but it's better than 3. Kael wanted to refuse. Wanted to tell Marcus to take his 15 wolves and disappear, that this wasn't their fight anymore. But looking at his former beta, at the genuine regret carved into every line of his face, at the way his hands shook with exhaustion and fear, but he'd come anyway, Kael recognized something. Redemption didn't come from words. It came from showing up when showing up might get you killed. Why? Kael asked. Why come back? Why risk this? Because I was wrong. About Soren. About the Covenant. About what freedom actually means. Marcus's voice cracked. I thought I was joining something better. Turns out I just traded one tyrant for another. The difference is, you never pretended to be anything but what you were. And at least when you ruled, we knew where we stood. That's not exactly a ringing endorsement. It's the truth. And right now, truth is all I've got left to offer. Silence fell, heavy with weight of decision. Finally, Kael sheathed his sword. Your 15 wolves, they know what they're walking into? They know. They came anyway. Then they're either brave or stupid. Both usually are. Marcus stood. What's the plan? We don't run. We don't surrender. We make Soren come to us on ground we choose, and we bleed him for every inch. Kael's voice hardened. And when he gets close enough, I kill him myself. End this, one way or another. Marcus nodded. Then we better pick good ground. Because 200 against 18, even with an ambush, even with every advantage, those are shit odds. I've won on worse. You were Alpha King then, had a kingdom backing you. Now I've got something better. What's that? Kael looked at Arya, at Dane, at the wolves gathering from the darkness, 15 fighters who'd come because they chose to, not because dominance demanded it. Now I've got people who choose to stand with me. That's worth more than any crown. They planned through the night. The clearing became a fortress. Not walls and gates, they had no materials for that. But terrain, natural choke points, kill zones where Soren's numbers would work against him instead of for him. Marcus's wolves worked with desperate efficiency, setting traps, sharpening stakes, preparing every nasty surprise they could improvise from forest materials. Arya moved among them, reading their emotional states, identifying who would hold under pressure and who might break. Not judging, just categorizing. Information was survival. Kael stood apart, staring north where Soren would come from, feeling the familiar pre-battle calm settle over him like a second skin. Dane approached. Last chance to run. Not running. Didn't think so, but had to offer. Dane was quiet for a moment. You know, when I swore to serve you 10 years ago, I thought I knew what that meant. Thought it meant following orders, fighting your battles, dying if necessary. And now? Now I think it meant finding someone worth following, even when there's no order, no battle plan, no certainty we'll survive. He gestured at the clearing, at the wolves working themselves to exhaustion, preparing for war. Just faith that maybe you know something the rest of us don't, about how this ends. I don't know anything. I'm terrified. Good. Means you're sane. Dane's hand gripped Kael's shoulder. But you're still worth following. Crown or no crown. Don't make me your alpha again. I left that behind. I'm not. I'm making you my friend. There's a difference. The word settled warm in Kael's chest. Friend. Not beta. Not subject. Not subordinate. Equal. Thank you, he said quietly. Don't thank me yet. Wait till we survive. Dawn came cold and gray. Mist clung to the ground like grave shrouds. The wolves took their positions, hidden in underbrush, behind trees in the small caves dotting the hillside. 18 bodies against 200, insane odds. But they'd chosen them. Kael stood in the center of the clearing, visible, vulnerable, bait. Arya wanted to stand with him. He'd refused. Needed her in the trees with a bow, using her null abilities to identify which of Soren's wolves were true believers versus conscripts who might break if the battle turned. I hate this plan, she'd said. I know. If you die, I'm going to kill you. That seems counterproductive. I'm serious, Kael. I know, I love you too. Now he waited. Sword in hand, heart steady, mind clear. The mist shifted. Wolves emerged from the tree line. Not 200. More. Soren had brought everyone. Every Covenant fighter. Every ally. Every wolf who'd sworn to his vision of freedom through dominance. They filled the forest. A sea of bodies. An ocean of teeth and claws and wolves who believed they were fighting for something righteous. And at their center, walking calm as dawn itself, Soren. He looked exactly as Kael remembered. Silver hair. Ageless face. Eyes that had seen centuries and learned nothing except how to break wolves and call it liberation. He stopped 30 feet away, alone, unarmed. Kael, he said pleasantly, you made this too easy. Did I? Walking away from your kingdom, abandoning your wolves, running into the wilderness like prey. Soren smiled. I expected better from the great Alpha King. At least a kingdom to siege, a throne to storm. But this, he gestured at the clearing, this is just sad. Or it's exactly where I wanted you. Is it? Soren's smile widened. You think you've set a trap? With 18 wolves against my army? Kael, I'm disappointed. That's not strategy. That's suicide. Maybe, but it's my choice. That's the difference between us. You spend your life forcing wolves to be free. I'm letting them choose how they die. Poetic. Useless. But poetic. Soren took a step forward. Last chance. Kneel. Acknowledge that your way failed. That alpha power is a lie. Do that, and I'll let your wolves walk away. All of them. Including the girl. No. No? I don't kneel. Not to you. Not to anyone. Not ever again. Soren's expression darkened. Then you die. All of you. And your death proves my point, that the old ways can't stand against the new, that hierarchy built on dominance crumbles when someone refuses to submit. You're right, Kael said quietly. Dominance does crumble. That's why I'm not using it. I'm not commanding these wolves. They're here by choice, and choice, real choice, is stronger than any power you or I ever wielded. We'll see. Soren raised his hand. The army moved. 200 wolves surging forward like a living wave.